Um, so, um, okay, cool. Got the recorded message. So yeah, basically what we're gonna do is give you the groundworks of how, like, what does writing a comic even mean? What does that even look like? You know what I mean? Like, what do you even start with? When I first said, okay, I'm gonna write some comics, I literally had no idea what that meant, because I was reading comics and I was like, all right, I see pictures, I see some dialogue here, but I mean, like, that's all I've got. Like, I have no idea what this looks like on the back end. And when I started doing research, it opened up a brand new world, and I started learning a whole lot. So this is intended to kind of jump start you into that world in a relatively short amount of time, versus doing days or weeks of research to even get rolling. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, if you have any questions, I do like to ask questions in the section that we're on. So if you feel like I'm about to move on to another section and you have a question about that particular section that we're on, feel free to put it in the chat, and or unmute yourself and say, hey, I've got a question, and I'll be happy to jump in and answer. So try to do it in the section that we're on, so we don't have to backtrack too much. All right. So yeah, again, I'm John Robinson. I write comics. You can find me online at Twitter. I'll give you more social media info at the end. As I stated earlier, I do write urban fantasy called Scorpio. It's about these 12 mystical relics that are empowered by the Zodiac. You can check it out, scorpiocomic.com. Again, more info on that at the end. I like to start off with this quote usually, because it's pretty inspirational to me, at least, which basically says that Stan Lee was 40 years old when him and Steve Ditko created Spider-Man. I like this quote specifically because it tells you that you can do it at any age. There's no excuses. You know what I mean? Like you just go in and do the thing. Don't be like, yo, I'm too old, I don't know enough, whatever thing is holding you back, forget about it and just jump in. Anybody can write comics, as long as you're willing to do the work, as long as you're willing to, as long as you're serious about about it. So that's a big quote for me. So first things first, we're going to talk about a few prerequisites that I think are important to the comic creation process. These are not required, but I highly, highly, highly recommend it. All right. So first things first, write something else before you write a comic book. All right. Some people may think that this is a harsh statement, but it's really not that harsh. What I mean by this is, if you haven't written any narrative form of work before, and it could be a short story, it doesn't have to be anything like crazy, it doesn't have to be some extravagant novel or anything like that. But if you have never ever sat down and done just some story writing, something narrative, then I advise that you do that to get familiar with the process prior to getting into comic creation. I'm really big on story. If you listen to my podcast, Beyond the Fourth Wall of Writing, I talk about all mediums. I talk about comics, screenwriting, novel writing, short story writing. But at the end of the day, the crux of all of that is story. Story is king. So you have to understand story before you even jump into comics. That's a big thing. I'm mentioning this because there have been several indie creators that I've seen in the past who have literally never written anything before, and they jump right into comic writing. And it's that much more complicated because there's a lot more that goes into comic writing, versus, just, writing a story in Microsoft Word or a notepad or something like that. They get overwhelmed by all of the extras that come with comic writing. So get comfortable with writing stories, and that's pretty much like one of the most important things, like as far as prior to writing. Another thing I like to mention is that creating comics costs money. So you don't want to be brand new, never written anything before, don't understand story, and then you invest several hundred or several $1,000s into a comic project, and it bombs because you're not used to the prerequisites. You know what I mean? And what I mean by prerequisites, it's like it's the same way that you don't want to take abnormal psychology, which is a 4th-year college course, before you take Psych 101. That's all it's saying. But and not a lot of us is required for this. Like, honestly, all you really have to do is write a short story, and bam, you've done it. Like, you're already getting familiar with it. You do not have to have a huge bibliography of novels or anything written beforehand. You just want to get familiar with story writing prior to writing a comic book. So yeah. The second thing that I recommend as a prerequisite is to read comics. Now, again, not required, but highly, highly recommended. I like this quote by Stephen King, despite reservations that I may have about Stephen King himself at times. But one of his quotes is, "If you don't have time to read, you don't have time to write." It's as simple as that. I'm a big advocate of anything creative that you're doing. You should be involved in that world. If you are making music, you should probably be. If you play the guitar and play jazz music, you should probably listen to jazz music. If you're a hip hop artist, you should probably listen to hip hop. If you're a writer, you should probably be reading things that other people have written. If you're trying to write comics, same thing. You get my vibe. So yeah, I'm really big on reading comics if you want to be a comic writer. No, it does not mean that you need to be a comic historian. You don't have to be able to go back and know that in Amazing Fantasy number 15 was the first appearance of Spider-Man or some crazy stuff like that. It's not important. What's important about reading comics is understanding from a technical perspective what those comics are doing, what people who know how to make comics have done to make their comics successful. And then hopefully you can learn from that and apply some of that stuff yourself. So that's why, yeah, learning from example is a big deal. I also recommend that you learn from Marvel, DC, and otherwise. I mention this because there's a subset of people on both sides of the fence who have denounced the Marvel and DC because, they're the big, they're the man and they're the big and, this, that, and the third. However, note that Marvel and DC are big for a reason. They have some of the best writers and artists in the world. So it would behoove you to learn something from those artists and writers. And also, on the other end of that spectrum, do not discount indie, because some of the indie stuff that never made it to Marvel and DC are some of the stuff that tells stories from perspective that you would never see at Marvel or DC or any other big companies. All right. So make sure that you're dipping in both sides, on both sides of the spectrum, Marvel, DC, and indie. Check out all of it if you can. If you don't know where to get comics from, Comixology is a good place to start. You can do a subscription on there. I think it's for like less than $10, like maybe $6 or something like that, and you get access to a lot of comics. Also, Marvel has a service for comics called Marvel Universe, I think, or something to that effect, where you can get access to comics, kind of like a Netflix type of thing. And DC Universe has the same thing on DC side. So if you want to like go back and read a bunch of old comics, you do that. And yeah, most comics that you want to read, you can find them in digital format. So yeah, read comics. Highly recommend it.
And if you're not a fan of Marvel or DC, Image and Dark Horse, they have a lot of good comics that you still see on TV today. So that's an alternative.
Absolutely. Image is my favorite company. They produce some of the best indie stories.
Agreed. Yeah.
If y'all haven't read Saga, a few panels back, a few slides back on that prerequisite slide, that's actually a character from Saga. That was Lion Cat. So Saga is one of the best. Yeah, it's one of the best comics you can read.
And it's an adult comic, so don't go buy Saga for your kids.
Please don't. God. Please don't. And also be careful reading it in public, because people are going to look at you crazy if they look over your shoulder and see certain scenes in Saga. I've done it, trust me. But yeah, so let's get into my third prerequisite here. Get an editor. This is almost not even a recommendation. This is almost a requirement. No famous writer, anyone you could think of right now, does not have an editor. Neil Gaiman, in my opinion, one of the greatest minds in literature. He's one of my favorite writers ever. still has an editor. There's Neil Gaiman. You know what I mean? Nobody is above an editor. Editors ask you questions, they check you, they enhance your work. Simple as that. You want to have an editor prior to, especially if you're new to comic writing. Finding an editor who is used to editing comics will greatly enhance your project. They will make sure that you don't put anything out there that's going to bomb. A good editor will. So yes, get an editor. All right, so let's get into some of the fun technical stuff. So we're going to talk about storytelling in comics versus storytelling in, I guess, other mediums. And some things will kind of leak over into other mediums as well. But we're going to talk about some specific stuff. In the comic, the one thing that is different from all other mediums in comics is the panel. This is where magic happens. All right. So a panel is simply a single moment in time. It's not a comic yet when you have a panel. It's just a single image inside of usually a rectangular or square shaped box. It is just an image by itself. All right. All the things that happen within the panel is all that ever has happened or will happen until you add a second panel. Now, once you add a second panel, you've got a comic book. So there's a very important thing on this very simple two panel spread that I've got here. I want to point out this single image that looks just like somebody. Obviously, the dialogue adds some dynamic here. We see he's talking, so we know that something is going on. We see he's sick, blah blah blah, etc. Right? But really, all this is, if you take away the dialogue, is a single image. Right? When you pop over to the second panel, you see a stream of green or whatever coming out. Now, most of us know this Green Lantern. Most of us are at least somewhat or vaguely familiar with Green Lantern, so we know, okay, it's probably the ring popping out. But what tells us that is this space in between the panels is called the gutter. All right, the gutter is one of the most powerful and most important parts of comic books that we as comic creators sometimes aren't even aware of. Right? This single image versus this single image, if you think about it, are they're just images. But what makes our mind work and create a moving action, even though there's nothing actually moving on the page, is that gutter. It's where it's a natural. It naturally makes the human mind fill in the area and create action in your head. You know what I mean? So that's why when you're reading a comic book with 2 to 7, even sometimes even more panels per page, we're not really reading them as single images. We're reading them as a very motion-esque process. So that's why I want to use this very simple image of Abin Sur from Green Lantern to show how effective those moments can be. But yeah, you want to take note of the gutter. You want to take note of the fact that within the gutter, you can have moments of time that jump from just a few seconds, like this one here. You can have moments of time that can jump from entire scenes or hours, days, even. Sometimes you just put a caption up in the corner that says, a year later, a week later, or sometimes just switching the scene from nighttime to daytime or vice versa tells you that, hey, there's a time shift going on here, and all of that happens in the gutter. When it's done well, the reader doesn't even have to think about it. They're doing the work. They're doing more work than you've done on the page, but that's where all of that stuff is happening, is right there in the gutter. So take note of the idea of using the gutter as a storytelling mechanism. Right? So I want to get into a little bit of what shapes of panels do. Things like action to action and aspect to aspect when it comes to panels. Action to action is moment to moment. What that means is there's usually a very quick happening thing. Like there is a introduction panel, sometimes a reaction panel, or an action panel, and then a reaction panel. So this is Hawkeye by David Aja and Matt Fraction. So here we can see this action probably happened all in the span of like 3 seconds, right? Hawkeye answers the door, Jessica Drew slaps him, and he's responding to the slap, right? If you notice, the panels are vertically placed. Vertical panels, not always, but often. Thinner vertical panels denote a quicker passage of time. So even though there's gutters here, still here, the gutters are. This is giving us the illusion of Jessica like basically coming through that door and slapping him, even though we only see 2 images of him and 1 image of Jessica slapping him. And it's kind of, I mean, honestly, this kind of stuff is fascinating to me because when we read it, we don't really think of it like that. We just see it's one fluid action, you know. But when you really break down and analyze what this comic is doing, you see that, okay, this is really just 3 images that are denoting, you know, a particular action. So and sometimes you'll have 1 panel for something like this. You'll just have the slap panel. This middle slap panel sometimes is enough to get the picture across. But in a minute, we're going to talk about something called emotional space and impact. And that's what these panels do. By having an intro and a reaction to this, we're able to infer more about what's going on in the scene. Clearly, he's just woken up here. Clearly, he's probably deserved this slap because he doesn't react in any kind of way that says I didn't deserve it. So you kind of get the idea that there's some kind of tension going on there. And to further denote that, we've got this wide panel that follows up with Jessica walking into the room. Now, I love this panel a lot. Or actually this whole sequence a lot, because this is a perfect example of how you create tension without dialogue. The width of a panel usually denotes, like the larger and wider a panel is, denotes passage of time, tension, and or impact. So you want to think about those things when you think about the sizing of the panels and how many panels are on your page. They use a lot of space to show her walking into the apartment. They could have done it far more simple. They could have had him open the door, get slapped, she walk in, and all of it be these quick vertical panels. But the impact would not have been as volatile. But as you see with her walking the room like this, having a wide shot, he just got slapped, but the dog's calm. Usually if somebody gets hit, dog will be barking off, you know. He's kind of reserved, resigned to letting her in. We can tell that there's tension in this scene. And this is all done within just 4 panels. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, this is a good example of the power of storytelling in comics if you know how to use your space well. Right? Here's another panel that kind of helps to note that the impact and tension. We see kind of an establishing shot here, characters sitting in a field, and then we get kind of like this inset panel that zooms in on her work and somebody off saying, hey, you know what I mean? So we already, within this one image, before we even see the next image, we already understand that there's tension here. She's alone. Somebody's trying to speak to her. It's a 1-word comment. There's the panels are large here. Again, the size of the panels create impact. Inset panels usually aren't this big. Inset panels are usually a smaller action just to get the point across. But this is larger to show that, hey, without even seeing the other character, we know that there's something going on between them. And as denoted by this next panel, she responds, single word response. Again, wide, kind of denotes tension, passage of time. You know, so you generally get my drift with how the size and shape of panels can help to create the effect of emotion or what have you. Versus like in a movie, if you're watching a movie, you have those scenes where something happens and they'll have a back and forth between a couple of characters where there's no dialogue happening, or a pause for a few seconds before something big pops off. Comics does that by either doing less dialogue per panel or making a panel larger, or sometimes you can have moments where the panels are you'll have a panel maybe with no dialogue and then another panel where action happens after, quite like in the previous Hawkeye panel. So a couple other things you can do with panels is again, a panel usually tells a story within a square, But if you have action or something crazy going on in your panel, making things come outside of a panel creates the illusion of something coming at you, something intense, something urgent. So what the artist did here, this is Bitterroot by David F. Walker, Chuck Brown, and Sanford Green, who's on art. You can see that this monster coming outside of this panel denotes major urgency. It's honestly, it's one of the best tools for action. It's one of the best tools for showing a character that is larger than, or is either the most important part of the scene or larger than the scene itself. It's done a lot of the times when you see like if you were to see Shuma-Gorath or from Marvel. Shuma-Gorath is like a big Cthulhu looking monster. If you see him show up in Marvel Comics, you often see him either taking up an entire panel or literally his tentacles like flowing all outside of the panel that he's supposed to be in and kind of seeping into other panels. That helps to show that this thing is bigger than the page. This thing is more important than the page or the most important thing on this page. So you could do that to help denote impact. Another thing you can do, a huge tool that you will see in almost every comic book that you read, is the splash page. This is an image of Black Panther grabbing Cap around the neck. All right. In storytelling, you could easily have conversation and interaction prior to this. You can make this a small panel at the end of a 6 to 7 panel page, but the impact would not be there. It would not be the same. Seeing Black Panther grab him around the neck in a small panel is kind of like, okay, I got it. He grabbed him around the neck. But like to turn a page and see that on a full splash page it shows impact. Even if we didn't know who Cap and Black Panther were, we can tell that, oh, this is a big deal that person A is grabbing person B around the neck because the writer and artist made this a full page event. We could tell either something just happened or something's about to happen. So yeah. Splash pages impact. You want to make sure that you utilize that in the moments where it matters. All right, so we'll get into pacing. Pacing is important in all storytelling forms. It is supremely important in comic books. The reason is because we only have so much space to work with in a comic book. 22, 24 pages, that's all we got. It is supremely important. Okay, let's explain this for a moment. In a novel, it's important to pace in a novel. You want to keep people engaged or whatnot. But you have a little bit more room. You know what I mean? You have more room to introduce characters, do descriptions. You've got more room to kind of introduce the plot. Maybe a couple of chapters before you even have a catalyst happen if you want. It can happen in the first chapter if you want, but yeah, you have more time to kind of get the story rolling. When I pick up a novel, personally, I have more patience just by picking up a novel because I'm flipping through it. It's like 500 pages. I'm already like, okay, I have to have patience anyway. When you pick up a comic book, it's a little bit different. 24 pages full of images. You want to be rewarded almost immediately when you pick up a comic book. So you don't have time to really lollygag and think about, well, I want to introduce this and I want to introduce that. You have to make things happen as you introduce things in a comic book. And the fact that you only have 22 to 24 pages to work with means that every single panel, every single scene, every bit of dialogue needs to matter in your comic, way more so than a novel. Even more so than some movies. Movies have a little bit more leeway. You know, they can ask for, hey, do we have a 2.5 hour slot for this? Or you could be like Endgame where you get a 3 hour slot. And you have time to play with scenes or add in things that you think are important that may not be super necessary to the story. In a comic book, especially in your first couple of issues of any series, what is on the page is supremely important because we're just like as comic readers, myself included, we get burnt out far more quickly in a comic book if nothing's happening in the first few pages. So just take note of that. Emotional space. This is the term I mentioned earlier. I learned it from Joelle Jones, who wrote the Catwoman. She actually wrote and drew the Catwoman series, the not the current one, but the one that came out in like 2018, I think. But basically it has to do with the number of panels required to convey a particular scene or moment based on the importance of the story. If we go back to the Hawkeye from a few slides ago, we see that they use three. Actually, there's actually, like, if you look at the whole page, if you read the actual comic, there's actually more panels than just those four. But they do all of that just to establish the relationship between Hawkeye and Jessica Drew. I think in the whole, if you read the full comic, I think she slaps him twice. Actually, I only posted one slap, but I think she slaps him twice, and then she walks into the room. And again, the emotional impact of that helps to create or helps to convey the tension between the characters. And sometimes you have to do that. I believe there's a scene in this Catwoman comic to give some context. This is her comic started right after she left Batman at the altar. They were supposed to get married. Batman's up there, he's like ready to go, and she bounces. So it rolls right into Catwoman number 1 right after that, and she's going through this comic. She doesn't really note the Batman situation at all for a while. She's chasing around some doppelgangers or something like that. A whole bunch of action happening. But there's a scene where she gets alone. She goes home, and they spend, I want to say it's like 2 pages with her walking, seeing her house, walking in the house, looking at a corner, sitting down in the corner, and just crying. You know what I mean? And that is the kind of thing that it denotes emotional space. Usually you could do that action. The artist / writer could have just gone in and posted a single panel with her crying. But the impact would not have been as poignant. And even though you do have to be careful with how many pages, how much space you have in your comics, conveying emotion is also as important as using your, trying to fit everything within 22 to 24 pages. So sometimes less things can happen in a single issue, but sometimes the impact of those things will take up more space. So
I have a question about the emotional space. So when I'm reading comics and they do that, it really bores me. And I don't know if it's the art style or what it is, but for me, it's just a personal opinion. I feel like it's wasted. Because like you said, you only have a certain amount of pages to,
right.
the action. So do you have any advice on how to make sure that the art, if there's no dialogue on the page, to make sure that the art keeps the reader interested through that pacing of the emotional space?
Right. Yes. Okay. So the number one thing is have little or less dialogue because you're reading it faster. You know what I mean? Like if Catwoman's scene when she was, coming into her house and sitting down and blah, blah, blah. If that scene had a whole bunch of captions in it, it wouldn't have worked because we would get bored faster. You know what I mean? We'd be reading through the captions. We're like, okay, I get it. She said, okay. You know what I mean? But the fact that we get I think one of the pages is a splash page of her walking to her apartment. And then it's like, there's only 4 to 5 panels on the other page. So there's not a whole bunch of panels to show this. So I would make your panels larger, again, to denote impact. Use less dialogue so the reader isn't trying to slosh through it. The size of the panels is the factor there because you're reading it faster. There's not a whole bunch of panels to try to make your eye travel from left to right, from left to right. It's more like splash page. Okay, she sits down. She's sad. She's crying. I think there could have been only 3 panels on that page, as a matter of fact. But yes, making your panels larger to help with that emotional impact is the way to go about that, I think. Does that kind of answer your question? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense because I think some of the ones that I'm thinking of had a lot of panels and I just got annoyed and just kept flipping through the pages.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
Because
when is it going to be over?
it's like, what's the point of this? Yeah, exactly. It has to be done right. And that's the hard part of pacing. That's the hard part of using emotional space and pacing in a comic book. It's like, how much do you set up the act? Because I'm a big fan of aspect shots, like showing a scene, showing what the room looks like, showing different elements of the scene. It's a very Eastern style of telling the story or telling comic book stories. But yeah, I like the setting up aspect shots, but you can't spend too much time doing that because it's like, okay, I get it. They're in an office or they're in their house or whatever. You know what I mean? You got to do it quickly. And you got to make sure that in the panels that she used, like hers when she walks up to her house, the establishing shot she's walking to her house, and then her walking down the hallway of her house, that's to show that she's alone. And then when she sits down and she starts crying, then it's kind of like your mind snaps. You go, yeah, oh yeah, she left Batman at the altar, and this is her, like this is her emotional response to that. You know what I mean? But yeah, you're right. If they did like 6 or to 10 panels on that, it's kind of like, all right, like come on. So yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So yeah, pacing conversations. So here is a scene. Hopefully this thing is not blocking the edge here. Conversations are a little bit different. I have a few rules of thumb. These aren't like definitive rules. These are literally rules that I've learned along the way. So when you're pacing conversation, you want to use single panel for simple back and forth conversation. You expand the size of the panel for longer responses. But honestly, like if you're just having like a simple, not tension heavy, not an argument or anything, just back and forth conversation, it doesn't denote much impact yet, then yeah, a single panel is fine. If you start to, now if the word count starts to go up inside of those regular conversational panels, then either use a larger panel, like scale down to like, 3 to 5 panels, maybe even 3 to 4 panels on that page, because the conversation, there's more dialogue going back and forth. So you can fit, that's another thing, you gotta fit the dialogue. The letterer will kill you if you give him a page with like 10 panels on it, and then you've got like a freaking essay of dialogue on there. You can't do that. It literally won't work. Like it just the letterer would just tell you that it won't work. You have to change the dialogue. So yeah, when you have more words per panel, you want to make them larger, or just move make it a back and forth, like one person spoke and then like the next person speaks. High tension conversations require more panels. So if somebody's arguing, you need to have a person's action, then that reaction. Even though that Hawkeye panel, I keep on referring to the Hawkeye panel, they're just so excellent to me. But if you look back at the Hawkeye panels, even though they're not having a conversation, he opens the door, he gets slapped, and then it goes back to him responding to that. That's an argument without words, really. So you need to understand that emotion needs to be conveyed in the characters' faces when they're arguing. They're usually yelling. There's usually going to be pauses in the conversation where people don't say anything at all, and that's going to require a lot of back and forth, require more panels. So more tension requires more emotional space, because there's stuff going on there. Pauses in conversation to denote impact or conflict. If you look at this image I have off to the right, this is a story from Flashpoint. That's Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor. I won't give you the whole backstory of Flashpoint, but they're alternate universe. This is not the regular characters. But he's talking about, in the first panel, he says one of the most beautiful women he's ever met. He's talking about Lois Lane. So when he says that, if you know that Wonder Woman in the other world, in the regular DC universe, have a relationship, then you can see that there's a pause in her action, because she's taking that in. She's like, oh wait, like but I'm the girl. Like I'm Wonder Woman. Like you love me. What you talking about Lois for? Kind of a thing. Even though it's an alternate reality version of her, you could tell that it has an impact. And then it leads into the rest of the storytelling in the last panel. If you take that censor panel out, even though you get more space, because okay, -1 panel, you lose, like, honestly, I wouldn't like that. You know what I mean? You lose the emotional I don't keep saying emotional impact, but that's what it is. You lose the emotional value of that scene. But to have that moment, you get a connection, and that's what people, we as readers, we connect to, like in all forms of storytelling, we connect to the humanity of the characters in the story. So if we know, even though Wonder Woman in this alternate universe story is like on a warpath, she's like straight up killing like everybody. Even though she's that kind of a character, this moment kind of gives us a callback to, oh, like that's the Diana we know back in the regular DC Earth. You know what I mean? I was gonna say 616. That's Marvel, but yeah, in the regular DC universe. I don't even want to mess up the name. It's not Prime and it's not New, but I'll just say the regular DC Earth. We get a call back to that. Yeah, just like I said before, high tension conversations, back and forth. Sometimes single phrases or single words going back and forth. You want to arguments. You want to have that to denote the tension. Um, Sometimes a single panel with fewer words denotes impact. If you go back to the pages that showed after the Hawkeye page with Gotham Girl, or no, not Gotham Girl. I'm sorry, that was Gotham Academy. Those two characters that were in there, one of them said hi, the other one said hey. We already know the size of the panels with how few words they spoke. We already feel the tension without even knowing what's going on in that scene. So these are some tools you want to use when you're talking about pacing conversation. Action, whole different story. Just so you guys know, this is probably my favorite action scene ever in a comic book. This fight between Elektra and Iron Fist. They're not all like this, but my God, like if everybody did action like this, then more people would read comics. But you can see this page is actually, so I actually only have 12 of the panels in here. That's actually the full page is 16 panels, which is unheard of in comics almost. You never have six, like your average panels per page on a comic book is about 6. All right. To have 16 is a very high octane, very intense fight. Now, Rochelle, let me know if this is the kind of thing that will bore you, or if this is more interesting because there's action going on. But
Definitely more interesting with the action.
right, yeah. So you see, so when you see when we're pacing action, we've got a lot of back and forth. Especially it works especially well in martial arts. Like if people are very precise with their movements, is Iron Fist and Elektra are some of the highest level hand-to-hand combatants in Marvel. So seeing these two have this high level fight like this is just like, I mean, tension the whole way through. We're kind of like we can feel the hair on our arms like kind of raised just the entire fight. Like who's gonna get it? They're going back and forth. Who's got this fight. So you want to do that when you're doing fight scenes. You don't want to use more than one major movement per panel in the middle of a fight scene. It gets really sloppy if you do. Like just take that. Like fights take time. Like just even if it's a big fight, like big Goliath people, like like Superman or what can't I think of his name? Clark, whatever Clark's real name is, or the Shi'ar guard dude's name is. It's gonna kill me. I can't think of it. I think of his real name, but I can't think of his
Guardian.
There you go, Guardian. There you go. So yeah, so the characters like that, like big, high level, super strong fighters, you won't have fights like that. Like you don't want to do simple back and forth like this with them because they're too strong. They're too big and powerful. So these little precision attacks is not how they fight. You would use big panels, like 3 to 4 panels on a page to show like a big, blow, and then the other person flying back or what have you. So yeah, melee fights work with more meticulous panels. Explosive and powered fights, powered includes like Hulk, Guardian, Superman, people like that. They work better with larger panels. So you can really show again impact of what's going on. When Superman punches somebody, it shouldn't be a tiny panel like when Elektra kicks Iron Fist here. It should be like a big, oh snap, that person's probably dead because he just got punched by Superman kind of punch, and then again use the gutter to let people infer actions. We don't really think about it a lot here because there's so many panels, but yeah, Elektra's kicking him here, but he's already on the ground on this panel. She's trying to stab him. We can infer that between this panel, he fell to the ground. We can infer that here in this panel that he got the one up and was able to kick her in the gut. So, like take note that the gutter is still doing work. Between every panel, the gut is doing something that helps the reader to get what's going on in this fight. All right, pacing with aspect. This is the kind of thing I like. This is my style. It's just preference. This is from Watchmen. This is when he discovers the comedian's death in the Watchmen graphic novel from whatever 80s. I can't remember the exact year. but yeah. So aspect shots are scene to scene to help place the reader in the story. We get a shot of the moon. We get a shot of the ground. We see right here, we see the little smiley face. He's picking it up. So there's a lot of aspect scene to scene stuff going on here, and they do it within 9 panels to kind of paint. This is kind of a more literature style of comic storytelling where we're painting the scene versus just giving us, they could have done it as simple as showing this building up in the first panel and then showing him climbing up in this last panel. This isn't all required. However, is we know that as history tells us, this is one of the most well-known scenes in Watchmen. This is the first time we see the bloody. Oh, actually, no, it's not the first time. Second time we see it. First time we see his Ratchet comedian dies. But but this is one of the that bloody pin is one of the most important elements of Watchmen. So spending some time with him picking that up and him discovering the death of the comedian, that sets off everything that happens in Watchmen. So it's important to spend time on things that essentially catalyze your events. The catalyst is usually the event that gets your story running. So it's okay to spend some time on that. Splash pages, again, for big reveals. There's no splash page here, but it's a part of aspect. If there's something big, like a new place, usually a splash page works for like if you're reading Marvel and it's the first time you've seen the helicarrier, that's a good splash page. Like if you've never seen a helicarrier before in a comic, and then they're just all of a sudden on it without a splash page, you kind of lose it a little bit. You don't really get where they are. You don't have the sense of where you're at. Versus if they give a splash page that shows the helicarrier in its this great technological glory floating overhead or whatever. It's kind of the same way when you see the helicarrier for the first time in the 2012 Avengers. Granted, that's a movie, but it's a big deal when they show it. They show it, lifted up. You see all the rotor spinning up. It's a big deal. That in a movie is the same thing as a splash page in a comic. So if you want to make sure that you use those, again, I talked about this before. Wide pages with fuse reactions denote time passage, tension, impact. Location shot at the start of a scene is good. It's a good use of panel space. So if you're switching a scene, a location shot, like showing a house that they're in, and then usually a caption that said, location, the Shim house. I'm using Scorpio, for example, Shim household, that shows you where they're at. And then like go inside of the house. It just gives people a reference of what's going on, where you're at. Keeps people from being confused in your scene.
Is it okay to change locations mid-page?
Yes. And honestly, I would recommend doing a location shot, especially if you're doing a mid-page change. That way, as long as it's clear to the reader, it's fine. Yeah. Changing scenes. I like to change scenes like on a different page, but like if it's just gonna waste space, then there's no point in doing that. Do it mid-page. You know what I mean? It's totally fine. If anybody has any other questions, we're about to get into character for a second. If anybody has any other questions, let me know.
I think I have a question, but I don't know if you're gonna talk about it later.
Mhm.
I was just wondering, like for your panels and for the dialogue, do you outline your dialogue first and then do the art? And like, how do you ensure that your text fits?
Yeah.
It's not too long, not too short. Like,
Okay, so yeah, there is a section later on we talk about the script, the comic script, and I'll show you like what the script looks like and how it what it looks like on the page. But a good rule of thumb to denote for dialogue is when you start to get around 30 pages or 30 words in a panel, it's a good idea to go on to another panel. Unless you have less panels on the page. But if you're going with your standard 5 to 6 panels a page, about 30 words in a panel is where you want to get it cut off. I'll give you some insight. A new project that I can't mention the name of yet, but me and the editor just got done with it. We're both super excited about this one, but the main thing that we did when we did our talk through was literally like we were both saying, all right, how do I cut this shorter? Like for dialogue, like we didn't really change any of the scenes. Like all the scenes were good. Like the storytelling was good. But it was kind of like, all right, how can we say this in less words? Like literally, should we move this to a different panel, or how do we we could probably just cut this out completely? That's the kind of conversation you're having with your editor. It's like, oh yeah, the reader could probably infer this. We could save a whole panel with that, that kind of a thing. So yeah, if all else fails, saying a thing in less words is always better. Always. Try to stray away from speeches unless you're going to give a Spider-Man number 536 Captain America speech, which is that "No You Move" speech that Captain America gave in the in the movie Civil War. It was Agent 13 that gave that speech, but that same speech was the one that Captain America gave in Spider-Man 536. That speech was like like way more than 30 words in that panel, but there was less panels on that page, and that speech was super impactful. I mean, it made it all the way to a freaking movie. So if you're doing something like that, then yes, you can have more. Just do less panels on your page. But the good rule of thumb is about 30 words or less of like copy on the page.
Gotcha. Okay.
Or not on the page. I'm sorry, in a panel. Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right, so we'll get into character. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here because this is not really a writing course, but it is specifically for, like, I guess, writing in comics. But there's a lot. I mean, we could have a whole class on just writing characters. So we're not going to talk like too long on writing characters, but there's some things I wanted to note because visuals are so important in comic books. Character design matters a whole hell of a lot. There is a rule out there called the silhouette rule, or the silhouette test rather. And this basically says, can you tell who your character is, or does your character look different from any other character just based on their silhouette? Feel free to unmute if you want. Can y'all tell me who these characters are?
Pikachu, Hela, and
Pikachu,
Goku?
the first one, and the third one is Goku, but I am not sure who the second one is.
Hello.
Yeah, Hela's
Yep.
the middle one for sure.
Yep, it's Pikachu. Pikachu has one of the Pikachu is an, like, whatever you think about Pokemon, Pikachu is an excellent character. Excellent. I mean, from the voice actress down to the design. I mean, like, Pikachu is arguably like the cutest Pokemon in existence, right? I mean, I know there's other ones, but but like Pikachu was up there, and he hangs with Ash, and he's always saying Pika Pika. But his design it's very noteworthy. Like, we know, again, with just the silhouette, what Pikachu is. I mean, honestly, he's a freaking genius character. As simple as his design is, it's actually really genius. I mean, he's even more notable than his evolved form of Raichu. Like, nobody cares about Raichu, not really. Everybody cares about Pikachu, you know. So that little electric tail, and it's just a really good design. Hela I used because that headdress is just like, nobody has a helmet like that. And like, even in the movies, when we see what's her actress's name? Oh man, is it Kate something? I can't think of her name right now. But yeah, when she does the role, when she pulls her hair back and then it comes back up in the crown, it's epic, you know. So yes, those kind of designs. And then of course Goku, his hair is like that. It's crazy because nobody else has hair like that. We know that it's Goku. This form is even more definitive than his Super Saiyan form, because it's just so noteworthy. So if you can create a character that has a silhouette, and we see that hair and headdresses is a big deal here, but if you can create a character that has a silhouette that is notable without seeing the actual character, then you've probably got a pretty good character design. I mean, there's other things to go into it. Obviously, we see Hela's rocking the green. He's got the yellow. He's got the orange. Goku has a whole history with the signs and the symbols on his back, representing which teacher most recently taught him his latest technique or whatever. So there's a lot of history that goes into character design in addition to that. But you want to think about that silhouette thing to begin with. But a lot of this weighs heavily on the artist. Like, this is not really your job 100%. But the things that you want to be able to do is figure out the story part of the character. What does your character want? The motivation. Like, this is the number one question you need to ask. Every character wants something. Even if you don't think your character wants something, yes, they do. You got to figure it out. Even side characters. Even if it's not important to the story, your side characters want something. Your main characters definitely want something. And your villains, definitely, probably more important than even your protagonist, wants something. If you're able to delineate what these people want, then you can help. You can incorporate that into things that they do in their backstory, which helps with their design. All right. So when you're asking the question of who these characters are, again, backstory: are they a student, bounty hunter, attorney, intergalactic attorney, whatever? These are the things that help to denote the kind of character that they are. So if you have a student, you're already denoting, okay, this character is maybe innocent, maybe, unless you have a student that's like Frank Abagnale and he's like a freaking genius, like, from the jump. or like Kira from Death Note or something like that, where they're just like already geniuses. You kind of have a picture of what a student is, or a picture of what a bounty hunter is. You get like a picture like Boba Fett in your head or something like that, or intergalactic attorney. I don't know what image you get in your head from that, but but yeah, you're already creating a standard for what these people, like a kind of an outline, rough outline, a picture that you're putting into your artist's head when you say this, and then you ask why, why are they a student? Why are they a bounty hunter? What circumstances led them to this status? How do they feel? Blah, blah, blah. This starts, like, when you're asking these questions, a lot of writing is about asking questions. When you start to ask these questions, then as you answer them, you start to form a better picture of what they look like in your head. And then also you're helping your artists form a better question or a better answer as to what they look like in their head. So this is where the design aspect comes. You're asking questions and you answer them to your artist, then your artist comes up with ideas. They start saying, well, okay, if they're a bounty hunter, then maybe they need some form of armor, or maybe they want to hide their identity. So maybe we need to come up with some kind of a helmet or a mask or something like that. Or, maybe they're whatever, but poses, personality, all that gets incorporated into this. And then of course, the aspects of the personality, big thing you want to think about as character is nature versus nurture. How much of, say, Kingpin, I'll use Kingpin from the Daredevil series. How much of that is because of his upbringing and the way his dad treated him and stuff like that, versus like just who he was as a person growing up. Some people can go through harsh stuff and still come out pretty good. Maybe have some trauma and stuff in their life or what have you, but they may not grow up to be a super villain like Kingpin. But some people, some of those things, the trauma that happens in your life can help shape them. So when you think about these aspects of a character and you really get your writing part of the character down, this helps paint a picture for the artist of what this character should look like. So that's your job as far as character design. But yeah, character design is very, scary, very heavily dependent upon the artist. Theme, I'll touch on this very, very quickly because again, it's not a writing course, but theme is very, very important in any story and in your comics. The question for theme is what makes you feel. All right. And what I mean by this is, what question are you trying to answer? What thing do you believe in? What thing do you believe in that is a part of your story that you're trying to convey? All right. So what that means is if you use we'll use 2000 film, Tom Cruise, Minority Report. All right. So in the Minority Report, the theme is about the precognition and whether or not it's okay to arrest somebody prior to doing a crime, the future crime thing. That there's a very strong moral implication in that storyline. So in your own story, whatever, whether you're doing it, again, I'm all about story, whether you're doing a comic, movie, novel, whatever, you have to think about what you're trying to convey and what questions you're trying to answer, or whether or not that question is ambiguous. Is it okay to arrest somebody before they do a crime if you have a 95% assurity that they're going to do it? Or is it immoral to put somebody in jail for something they haven't done? You know what I mean? So when you ask questions like that for your story, then it helps to create kind of the theme of what you're trying. It helps to create the theme and the tone of your story. So again, I won't go too much deeper than that on theme because again, there could be a whole course on that, and we want to focus in on comics. But these are the things about when you're writing your comic, and your art plays into this too. Depending on the kind of theme you have and the tone that you have in your comic, your art is going to be more or less serious, more comedic, more. Your artist choice is going to weigh very, very heavily in on, or your theme is going to weigh very heavily in on your artist choice. Let me keep it moving. All right, let's get to the comic script. This is one of the most important aspects. It's not tough. Comic script is not tough at all. It's you'll see. It's actually pretty simple. And it's a lot funner than a movie script. Movie scripts are very tedious, very very formal. Comic scripts are the opposite. So yeah, there's three kinds of scripts. Just hitting on them real quick. The full script, you're writing everything. You're writing the page, the panel one, the description of the panel, and the dialogue. Every single thing. It's the most tedious form and also the most common form, so get used to it. The Marvel style was what Stan Lee coined back in the day, where he worked with Jack Kirby and he would write like a 1 or 2 page synopsis of what's going on in the story. This is akin to a pitch you would give a publisher on today before you actually write your script. Back in the day, that was the script. And Stanley could do it because he's Stanley. He started it. So yeah, a script used to be like the Marvel style, and then the writer comes in at the end and pins in the dialogue. And then the hybrid is a combination thereof, where you get descriptions of each scene or descriptions of each panel a little bit more broad, versus writing, the full style script. You may write generally what happens in a scene versus writing every single panel. The artist draws that scene out, and then you come back and do the dialogue. This is actually still used, the hybrid, depending on your partner, because sometimes in a fight scene, for example, the artist may be so good at doing fight scenes, you could just literally write on the page, yo, this is the fight, this person wins, make sure this other person's hurt a little bit and comes out bloody, and then let them go ham for 3 or 4 pages. Sometimes that works depending on the person that you're working with, but from the jump, you probably want to use the full style script to start with. So writing a comic script,
Quick question.
yeah, go ahead.
So on the Marvel and the hybrid, are the terms that like artists, like comic artists, actually use and or know, or is it more of a just your interpretation of them?
No, those are pretty much official terms. Yeah.
Okay, I was just checking because I sent an artist more of a Marvel format a while back, or I sent it to somebody before, and it was like, no, you have to write everything out. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Probably better with different things. I got it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Marvel style. The only people that use Marvel style still nowadays are people like George Perez and like the OGs, like the ones who are writing back in the 70s and 80s. Unless your artist is okay with it, but most artists, they want a full script or at least a hybrid. So yeah, when you're writing a comic script, note that you're writing for your artist's eyes only. You're not writing for anybody else. You're not writing for some studio exec. You're not writing for some company. Even if you're working for Marvel and DC, you're still not writing for Marvel or DC. You're writing for the artist. So you can write whatever you want to be, conversational as you want to be as informal as you want to be. Comic strips do not have a set standard. I will, in a second, I'm about to go over some recommended things that you want to have on your script, but there is no set standard as far as like how you outline the page 1, panel 1, description, dialogue. There's a good way to do it to make it look clean, but it's not like nobody's gonna like slap you on the wrist if you don't do it like they will in the movie industry. Movie industry, if your script is formatted wrong, it could be the star script of the year. If it's formatted wrong, they're gonna throw it away. It's not like that in comics. Comics are very, very informal as far as their scripts. Most important thing about writing a comic script is to communicate what you want to your artist as clearly as you possibly can. So be conversational. Use references. One of the biggest things. References basically like literally inside of your Word document, link them to an image of what you want that panel to look like if there's something specific that you want. You're not doing this for every panel, of course. This is just for specific panels where something important is going on. You want to make sure it looks exactly like that. Use a reference. All right, so this is what the script looks like. So this is a script that I worked. This is a project that hasn't been released or anything. It's like, it's just like kind of just floating there. I may or may not use this, but hopefully it's large enough for you guys to see some of the words there. But yeah, you have a page number. Your page number you write out. You bold it. I recommend you underline it also, but you make it prominent on the page. And it's written out so that it's not a number to be confused with the number of the actual page of your document. Because you may be on document page 5, but on script page 2, for example. So always write out the page, the comic page that you're working on. Put it at the top. I like to bold and underline it. And then I'll usually put a page break before it so that the artists, they know that, okay, this is a new page. They have a good sense of where you're at. Panel number, same thing, bold it, make sure they know what panel they're working within. you know, you don't have to underline it, but bolding it is good just so they don't accidentally write things into the next panel or draw things into the wrong panel. Panel description. Panel descriptions are usually not this big. This particular description is this big because it's starting a new scene and they're introducing a lot of characters. Most panel descriptions are short, like this one down here. This one says Calhoun has a raised eyebrow. He has a coffee in his hands. The other hand is motioning towards Lester, he was still clearly fuming. So that's just like denoting, all right, this is what the characters are doing and basically what's going on. This panel is explaining like a whole new scene, all right? Your speaker is here. These are the people who's talking. I usually use a table. I have invisible lines here so you can't see them. There's usually a table here where they talk, and then the dialogue here where is what they're saying. So it's very, very clear who is saying what, and then what kind of panel is. This is narration, for example. So the artist knows this is probably going to, or the letterer rather, knows this is probably going to be a caption box. It's not a dialogue box. She's not talking to somebody else. She's kind of narrating the story at this point. So you can denote things like that in captions. All right, so a little bit more detail on the script to kind of zoom in a little bit there. When I'm starting a new scene, this is like a movie or a screenwriting thing. I denote whether they're internal, where they're at, and whether it's day or nighttime. Sometimes I may denote whether it's raining or something like that, especially if they're outside, you know, whether it's dusk, whether it's foggy, whatever. I put all that kind of stuff at the beginning. I put it in caps, not required, just a recommendation, right? It helps to give the artist a sense of the scene. Also not required. I put a lot of description here because it's a new scene. I say it's a bustling office, unimpressive cubicles. We see cabinets, corkboards, and print along the far wall. Depending on your artist, you may just say it's a bustling detective's office and they may know what to do with it from that. You know, this is just a little bit of insurance to give them an idea of the scene, but they probably know that there's corkboards and cabinets or what have you in the room. But what is important is I capitalize things that are of note. So the evidence board actually plays into like this. It gets referenced multiple times on this page later on. You can't see it because I only have this panel 1 here. But this evidence board gets referenced and it actually leads us into our next scene. So it has to be on the page. These other things, cabinets, corkboards, it's like whatever, whether they're in the scene or not, whatever. But this evidence board needs to be a prominent thing on the page, so I capitalize it. And the artist usually gets, if you capitalize something, that it's important. I also capitalize people's names because that's a new character that's showing up in the scene. That's important. As you see here, I've got a description of a character. This is a side character. Trav is not an important character at all. He's very much a supporting character. He's a white man. He's 22. And I usually put innocent or something that denotes their personality. So the artist gets a sense of how to draw them. It's like, okay, he's a young guy. He's innocent. I make sure that the coffee was capitalized because the coffee is important to help show that he's like really like this young dude who's bringing the coffee around. And he's just kind of, you know, he's kind of green as far as the rest of the detectives in the office, that kind of a thing. So the artist gets an idea of what kind of character this is and they can draw them accordingly. Now, characters like Money, you don't know it from here, but she's actually the main character in this story. That's her nickname. Money is a character that you would give to the description to the artist that you would probably establish before you even start the script. So this is something that you've got references for. It's in your story Bible. You've probably already got a character design for Money. Prior to writing this script, right? Or handing over the script. But Trav, Calhoun, and Lester, these guys aren't super important. Their general descriptions here are enough to give the artist an idea to draw something vaguely like what you described there, if that makes any sense. And really, honestly, like for the script, this plus the references is all you really need. Like the script is as simple as that. It is, you know, there's practice you could do with working with scripts, but it is literally that simple. So anybody have any questions on the script process?
I have one question about the narrator, and I think you can show that through the art that the narrator is speaking. How do you indicate that the narrator is a character in your story versus this like omnipresent, omniscient like force?
Right. So on this previous page, go back a little bit. So this previous page right here, I put narration Money. So in this particular story, Money is narrating the whole story. She's like the like she's like the narrator. But usually, if you just write narration by itself with no character's name there, that means that there's like the omnipresent, the omnipresent voice. So yeah, you could you could denote your artists. Your artists are your line artist, your colorist, and your letterer. So your letterer is an artist. You could be as informal with them as you like, and as clear as you like. And I use a lot of captions and stuff like this. In one comic, I put there's magic in the comic. So I would, if somebody's casting a spell, I would put the character's name, and in caption, I put spell cast. So the letterer knows to write or draw that as in some script that looks like a spell cast script. You know what I mean?
So you can art to identify like certain characters. Like
exactly. Yep. And you use the cat, like using parentheses is a good way to denote that, to denote the kind of dialogue that it is.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that? Okay. Click through here. All right. So we kind of understand the technical side of it. Let's get into the production. Where are we at on time? I know it's been going for a minute. All right. Looks like we're pretty decent on time. Got about roughly 20 minutes. So let's go through the production really quick. This is getting your comic done. So first of all is the artist. All right, you guys are about to see some numbers. These numbers are on the high end in the indie world. They're not high for the industry. In the industry, they're way higher. But in the indie world, these numbers are high. Do not be afraid of these numbers. You can still do it, okay? I am forewarning you. The numbers are gonna look scary, but it is 100% doable, trust me. And I'll explain how and why it's doable. So first of all, when you're looking for an artist, I just put the bullet points right here. Make sure you find someone that's trustworthy, reliable, and communicative. These are probably the most important things right here. You want to make sure that they are invested in your project like you are. You want to make sure they communicate with you. You don't want to find somebody who's like, I guess you can work somebody who's just trying to do a quick job and bounce, but it's not really the recommended thing. You want to find somebody who's invested in the project and what you're doing and feels interested in it also. I was calling. You also want the artist to be timely. Depending on your patience, this can vary, but a lot of artists take a long time. So you want to be clear about your time standards. Even if you do give them more time, be clear about the time standards and and how fast you want the stuff done. Art does take a long time in general, so just be aware of that. And then you want to make a sequential art storyteller, not only an illustrator. This is very, very important. It's a mistake I see a lot of new comic writers make. They find an artist that has like, oh man, like these like paintings and these great still images, like high quality and stuff like that. But that is different from storytelling, because in storytelling, you're doing a lot of scene to scene emotional acting, a lot of action, like different dynamic poses, and the artist needs to be able to convey that and then convey that at the right time in your comic book. They need to, like when people are just talking, they need to understand how to give those characters the right expressions and whatnot versus just a cool pose. So this sequential art is a whole lot different from like illustrations. Hold on a second. One moment, sorry about that. Okay. All right. So let's see. Okay. You can find artists on there's a few sites, Digital Webbing. Facebook is a pretty good source, Reddit, ArtStation, and DeviantArt. Of all of these sources, you want to be careful on all of them. You want to make sure that you find someone, kind of vet the person that you're looking to work with. Look at their previous work. Try to find creators they've worked with before. And this is so you don't get somebody that runs away. It has happened. It's happened to me. Someone tries to ghost me and I had to like hunt them down and get my money back. So you got to be very careful with that. Also, on your end, you need to be upfront, honest with your artists of when you can pay them, be timely with your payments and stuff like that, so they don't think that you're ghosting them. It's a very tenuous relationship at the beginning, but once you guys get rolling and trust each other, then it could be a good working business relationship.
A question is digital webbing a creator site? What is that site? I've never heard of it either.
Right. It's a forum. It's a forum. It's not as active as it used to be. I hope they pick up the activity again, but it's a forum specifically for finding comic creators. So if you look up.
Go ahead.
Do you have any opinion on Fiverr?
Be careful.
Yeah.
You can find people, but be careful. Those prices those prices are not the prices. The prices, nobody is drawing your comic page for $5. I'm sorry. Right. That is not the price. If they're prices that, just be aware that it's going to be a real price and not that. I'm not saying you can't find anybody on Fiverr, because Fiverr is actually a good source to find people, but just note that those prices are not real. And note that, yeah, that's the main thing. Note that the prices are not real. You're probably going to find them there that work with them outside of Fiverr anyways.
So from your experience, what is average pricing for an artist, I guess, per page?
Right. Yeah, that's going to be the next thing. Okay. It's going to be the next page we get into in just a moment. Let's see. Okay. Yep. Sorry, I was getting my mom called me and then like called me on Facebook. I was like making sure it wasn't anything serious. When she calls twice back to back, I'm like, oh, what's going on? But no, we're good. Nothing bad. All right. So
a question too. How concerned should you be about sharing your entire story with a potential artist and then maybe running away?
Oh yeah, contract first. Yeah, contract first. You don't have to be too worried about an artist running away with their idea and like drawing it and getting it done before you, because you're gonna have a contract prior to, most likely, and once you drop once you have a date on your contract and stuff like that, and you drop your project, even if that artist dropped it first, they're gonna get burned. Like artists that get bad blood in their name, they don't want bad blood in their name, because they get blacklisted by the indie community and then they just lose work. So that one issue that they drew of your thing that they stole, it's gonna mean a career loss for the rest of their life. So they're probably not gonna do that. I've not heard of any artists running away with your project. I've heard of artists just ghosting. You know what I mean? Like they get an upfront payment and then they ghost and they just don't do it. Most artists are not going to to take the time to draw your project and then run away with it. They're just gonna, if they get the money, they're just gonna be like, oh, okay, I got the money, I'm out. If they're unworthy, if they're not trustworthy, you know what I mean?
And is it like overkill to ask people involved in your project to sign an NDA so they don't tell other people who might be more invested and take the idea and run with it?
Right, absolutely. No, NDA is 100% recommended. 100%. Yeah, NDA.
I'm doing too much when I mention the NDAs.
Oh, no. I mean, honestly, that should just show them, because some artists who aren't used to the business world may get scared of that. You know what I mean? And on the writer side too, if an artist comes with their stuff and the writer's not ready for it, writers get scared to be like, oh wait, you're official. But it's like, it's business. This is what you should be doing. You know what I mean? Even if you're just you and that artist working on the project together, it's business is business. You know what I mean? So yeah, absolutely. NDA and contract up front. What I usually do is I give an artist a snippet, like five pages or something like that, and I say, hey, does this sound interesting to you? And I give them like a synopsis of the story, those 5 pages. If they like my style of scripting, and they go, oh yeah, I could follow this. This works. Then we'll do a contract and we'll get into talking about payment and payment schedule, this, that, and the third. A lot of the time it's safe to, if you can, it's hard to, but if you can get an artist to accept payment after they're done with like a particular set, like pages 1 through 5, then that's the best way to go. It's not always easy because artists don't want you to run away with their money either, or with their work either. But if you can create a good working relationship, I have that with the Scorpio artist, Marco. Marco says he does not want to be paid until pages are done because he knows that it motivates him to get the pages done faster. And honestly, that's a good working relationship because I mean, I didn't even ask for that. He set that up himself. But the more realistic view is usually a tiered thing. Like you get layouts, and then you pay a certain amount. They give you the inks, and then you pay the rest, and then you move on from there.
I have a quick question. Do you usually arrange it so it's like a one-time payment per page, or do you also give your artist royalties?
So most of the time, so me personally, most of the time it's just the payment. Now you can set up deals where you get an artist to accept a lower page rate, but you give them like a certain percentage of the proceeds of the sales. I personally recommend against that if you can, because it makes things complicated in the future and making sure people are getting their proper payment in the future. It just makes it more complex. It's easier for you to pay them everything that they need up front, or the initial. When I say up front, I don't mean all in one lump sum, but I mean like when you initially do the project and then you just obtain all the sales from after. But yeah, as far as like per page or per comic, for indie, for especially individual people, is usually like, a set of pages. Like when I first started on Scorpio, when I was like had no money towards project, it was like all out of pocket. I was like, all right, look, I'm being 100% real. This is coming out of pocket. I've got to take this slowly. Can we do 2 to 3 pages at a time? So we did 2 to 3 pages at a time. So he would complete 3 pages. I pay him for the 3 pages, and then we moved on that. As we went on, I actually started. I was saving more money, so I started paying for more at a time. But we started really low. Right now for Scorpio, we do 6 pages at a time. So it's about a fourth of the book if you're talking about 24 pages. So I'll pay. He'll draw 6 pages. I'll pay for the 6 pages. He'll move on to the next 6, and then so on like that. But yeah, companies. You could do it a full book too if you want. You could do like the full price of the book. And then the artist produced the entire book like that. But lump sums, it keeps it a little bit more tiered, a little easier to keep track of. So yeah, cost. Here we go. Don't be scared. It looks scary, but don't be scared. So here's the numbers, just flat out. These are on the higher end, okay, in the indie world. Okay, cover 300 to 500 pages. All right.
Spirit hurts.
300 to 500 pages on the cover. I'm gonna tell you right now, I have not even paid for a cover that is 300 yet. Oh no, I take that back. I have now. Okay, but until recently, I have not paid for a cover that was even at the 300 level. All right, my covers have been less. Also, the style of the Scorpio cover is a little bit different because they're headshots. The first 3 issues of Scorpio are all headshots. So that because it's like not a full body, that ended up being even less than like a full body would be. But yeah, you can get covers for less than 300, but expect a lot of people to say, oh yeah, 300 for a cover. Just be prepared for it. Budget it if you can, but you will also find a lot way less than 300. Pencils and inks. If you want something that looks akin to like Marvel DC Image levels, 100. You can even go to 120 is where you'll hear people start saying, okay, pencils and inks were around that level. But I will also say there are a lot less than 100 per page. Okay, so again, do not be afraid of that number. You can find people for less. Same thing with colors. 50 is actually is on a very high end for colors. A lot of people, I've had colorists. Actually, I'll go through all of them. I've seen I've had a cover done for as low as 100. I've had people offer pages for as low as 25. Now, I'm not saying you're getting good pages at 25. Okay, take note. I'm not like I would not usually accept a page for 25. I would honestly, if somebody was good enough and they were offering for 25, I would actually say, hey, you want to bump it up a little? Because like I think your art's, pretty good and it should be more than 25. But I'm just saying what I've seen. I've seen as low as 25. I've seen about as high as 150 in the indie world. Now, I accidentally asked a DC artist, so I didn't know it was a DC artist at one point, and I got quoted like 400 for just the pencils, and I was like, "Oops!" I didn't realize he was a DC artist. So that's when you get to industry numbers, but you're not gonna like people who are in the industry most of the time, unless you know them in some way, are not going to be working on your indie project anyway. You're looking for indie artists. Colors, I've seen colors as low as 15 for decent colors too, and as high as about 50. I'm sure there's colors that go higher in indie, but I've seen them. I haven't personally seen higher than 50 for colors.
Can you explain to me the difference between pencils, inks, and colors? And also, do the same people do both of these things, or do different people do pencils and inks and then another person does color?
Right. Okay. So pencils and inks. These are together on one line because most of the time the artist does the pencils and the inks. So the pencils are the penciled sketches of a I wish I should have had an example up here, but they're the penciled sketches of a comic book page, right? It's not the layouts. The layouts is like just showing what a panel look like goofy sketches. The pencils are actually what the actual art looks like, right? But they're just penciled. The inks are the lines that pull it together. So if I go back, let me go back to an image or something, right? So let's not go too far back. So right here, we'll use this image here. So her sketches, you see these lines here? That's kind of on her chest, and then like the lines under her sides and the pants right here. Like this is stuff that was like in the sketch stage. You'll see more lines in those areas on the sketch stage, right? You see kind of more lines in the shadowed areas and stuff like that, like on her knee or thigh, stuff like that. The inks are the hard lines that go over it, right? Like these hard, like these, they're not as heavy here. I wish I had a heavier example. This person inks a little light, but the inks are like, you see these contours, these hard contour lines are what the inks are. So that's what makes it look like a comic page versus just the sketch level. And then the colors are, yeah, the colorist goes over the top of the inks. So most of the time the inker and pencil will be the same person. However, there are sometimes people who just do pencils and you can hire a separate inker. Don't recommend that because their prices are probably higher because your penciler will probably charge close to the same price they'll charge for pencils and inks. And then the inker will charge like at least half of that price. So your overall cost will go way higher. The colorists usually want to get a separate person to take some of the load off of the artist, but some artists like to do the pencils, inks, and colors, but their price for per page will be higher. So their price would be like 150 probably versus just the 100 if they're doing all of them. Artists usually don't do the letters. Some of them do, but most of the time you want to get a separate letterer. This $20 is on the medium to higher end. I've seen letters as low as $6. Maybe not the best letters. Okay, I'm not saying they're bad. Okay, I'm not saying that you know, but if you want really good letters, like industry levels, you're probably looking at around $10 to $15. And $20 is like the higher end. If you see someone for 25, they better be like, honestly, like industry level, 25, 30. Which they do go that high in industry level, but and I'm sure Marvel and DC pays more. I don't know exactly their rates, but I know in the indie world, the letterers are around here.
And what makes good letters versus bad? I know we're running out of time, but I really have a lot of questions.
No, you're good. You're good. I mean, I'm fine with going over a little bit if you guys are. It depends on your schedule. But good letters are so. What I'll do actually is so I'll explain it, and then after we get through this, I'll show some examples of like pencils and inks and letters. But good letters are from left to right. You want to be able to, your eye needs to be able to follow the flow of conversation naturally. Letters are good at doing that, following the flow of conversation. They're also good at contouring bubbles and putting the right amount of text in the bubbles and make sure there's enough space around the dialogue so that it looks natural. They're also good at tails to the character that's speaking to make it clear who's talking, tails from one bubble to another bubble, and the placement of where those bubbles are. So the artists will, like, you'll see like in early pages, there'd be like a character on a page and stuff. There'd be like a big space that artist is leaving space for the letter to put dialogue there. And a good artist usually notes that. They go, okay, there's a lot of conversation going on here. All right, I'm gonna leave a lot of space right here so that the dialogue can be interpreted. Like if you see some pages of Scorpio, you'll see like in 2, there's a conversation between Libra and the Libra character and Naomi, a potential Scorpio character. And there's a huge space in between them on the inks, but that space was for where all the dialogue went, and it came together nicely after the letter got to it. A letter also is good at lettering is an art itself. So for example, like my narration in Scorpio, like my letter adds in like whenever Danny's narrating, he puts a little scorpion little thing there, like like on the edge of the caption bubble. It looks cool. So like he does stuff like that, or if it's like big narration, it's like mystical. Like at the beginning of Scorpio number 2, he put like this like mystical looking narration and used like this mystical looking text, you know. Also, the example I used earlier about the spell cast, like in a future book that I'm doing, if I say a character is casting a spell, they're probably going to make that bubble with a font, with a font that comes outside of the bubble a little bit and makes it look kind of like a script that looks like they're casting a spell, you know. So yeah, there's a lot of art that comes with the lettering process as well. And usually you'll get those, but like the higher you pay for a letter, you'll get those cool features, like, you know.
So sorry, after you.
No, I just wanted to make a quick note. If people have to leave at 2:30, I will be sending a recording of this workshop via email. So if you have to go, feel free. If you like to stay, please stay with us.
So I haven't, thanks. I have another question. The letters, are they usually done by hand, or is it a font? And if it's a font, how do you safeguard against copyright infringement of fonts?
Right. So so for you okay, so for one, back in the day it used to be handwritten. Most of it now is digital, the fonts. But yeah, some of the OGs, they used to go in and write every line of dialogue and have like excellent script. But yeah, nowadays there are fonts. You have to trust that the letterer bought them. If they didn't, the good thing is it doesn't fall back on you. It falls back on the letterer. So somebody can like say I mean, this has never happened that I know of, but say a font, you know, 1,001 fonts or something comes after you and says, "Hey, did you pay for the Bangers font?" You know, that's a common font used, right? You can say, well, let me refer to my letter, and then you can reference the letter, and then they can go after the letterer. So that's like not on you at all. Like, they can't really. The letterer will be the one that gets dinged for that. But but most of the time, like nobody comes after anybody, and most of the time, there's actually a lot of commercially free to use
I
fonts.
was gonna say there are thousands of fonts.
Yeah.
I'm a graphic designer, so believe me, if a person is using a font that they don't have a license for, that's just a shame.
Right. Yeah.
I just recently set up a comic, 24 pages, lettered the whole thing myself as well.
Oh, nice.
Came to uploading it at Blurb, and then I got a message. There's a license for this font, and it was a font that's available with Clip Studio Pro.
Oh, wow.
Like Clip Studio Pro, you kind of figure, those fonts should be good to go, right? And then I had to change all the fonts on each page,
my goodness.
Each bubble. Yeah.
I would check with Clip Studio and see their look at their fine type and see like what they own and what you're allowed to use as far as the fonts and stuff like that
for commercial purposes.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Yeah. That's awesome. You lettered the whole book though. Lettering is some work.
Yeah.
So your big cost here, $4,380 to $4,580. So this is 4.5. Now, with like, if you're looking at this, like if you just like balling and you're just like, yeah, I could throw 4,500 down like it's nothing. This is gonna get you a I mean, it's gonna look like a Marvel DC book. You're gonna get not the only reason why I reference Marvel and DC. I'm not saying that they're the best comics producers ever. I'm just referencing them in terms of they hire the best people. You know what I mean? There's companies outside of Marvel and DC that have amazing, great art, and some of those creators that work for Marvel and DC also work for Image, Boom Studios, etc. The only reason why I keep noting them is because they're the ones that have the money to hire those level of people regularly or whatever. But yeah, 45, if you are able to swing 4,500 out of pocket, your book is probably going to do very well because it's going to look good. But it does not have to cost that much. So yeah, that's a lot of money. Before I go into this, any other questions?
Yeah, I noticed there you. Sorry, I noticed there you didn't mention paying the editor.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I did not mention editor. Yeah, my bad. Absolutely. So editor is another. Editor is it. Well, okay. I don't want to give a price on editor because it varies a lot. I mean, a lot. I've seen editors from $100 literally up to like 2,000. It varies a lot. So that's one of my reasons for not putting the editor, because it's just too much of a variable. Yeah, like I don't even know how to. I would just like shop editors, like honestly. Like I would shop around, find someone who you're comfortable with and who's a reasonable price range. But that's probably one of the most disparate prices. I would don't hire somebody who's 2,000. It's not that they're not worth it. It's just that's more than half the production cost of your book, or close to half your production cost of your book. You know what I mean? So I would find someone who's more reasonable, still works well, who you're comfortable with, who's more reasonable in price. So yeah, but you're right. Yeah, good note there. I did not have the editor's price on there. So take note, give or take a few more hundred for editor. But let's see here. So yeah, it's a lot of money. You can slash that number out for what your initial out-of-pocket cost will be, and you can look at this number. All right. Now I'm going to break down how that number is achievable. Now, but before I break down how that number is important and achievable, for anybody who still thinks 1,000 a lot, because 1,000 is still a lot. Don't get me wrong. Like I don't got 1,000 to just like throw at something right now. Like it's a chunk of money. You know what I mean? This is something that you could do over time or whatnot. But one of the kind of fun or funny things that I noted in this, I did some research on this a long time ago. But most people, I won't say everybody, most people can over the course of a year get $1,116. And that is literally by cutting out this. And it seems kind of funny, but if you look at the research, in America at least, the average price that somebody spends on just fast food, not restaurants. I'm not even talking about Red Lobster, not even talking about like the higher end stuff. Just fast food is about $1,200. Okay, so if you are able to sacrifice that, and you don't have to do it exactly this way. This is a little comedic to an extent, but if we're talking about sacrificing, if to make money to make your project happen, yeah, you can get the 1,000 or so that you need to by cutting out or sacrificing some of these fast food places. But if you don't believe me, you can look it up. Like it's a thing. There's other ways to make money, of course. Getting a job on the side, or just practicing more rigid saving standards or whatnot. But yeah, it is achievable. There's other things you could probably cut out. For some people, it could be video games. It could be MMO subscriptions. It could be comics themselves. I will say that when I did this, I was buying less comics. My comic pool went down super low because I was putting more money into paying for art and stuff like that. So
I have a question about the art.
Yeah.
When does it, or at least with pencils and inks, what part of that process does it start in the physical world, or does it only start in the digital, like illustrators and Photoshop world? And is there an in between? Just having an understanding of that.
Right. Yeah, it depends on your artist. The first artist for issue 1 of Scorpio was a he's traditional, which means he draws on paper, but he scans it in. Like nowadays, all comics they end up digital.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty. Like I don't know if there's really an exception there. They all end up digital. Even if they originally traditionally draw. Marco, the current artist, he draws everything. I think he may use his iPad, but he draws everything digitally. Also, Vivi, the colorist, she colors everything digitally. So yeah, it's usually on the page, and the pages get uploaded to like a, some cloud drive or something like that. I use Google Drive for right now. I use Google Drive and OneDrive from Microsoft to keep hold of the products, the pages and stuff.
And they'll send you like a PDF of the page finished, or how does that kind of like payment and what you're getting in return
right
look like?
So in return for like you pay them, you get a TIFF and or PNG, sometimes a JPEG, but JPEG is more of a lossy format. You want the highest quality, because when it comes to printing, you can't have like a low quality page. Most of your pages are going to be about roughly 3,150 by another number I can't think of right now, but it's going to be like 3,000 by like 1,000 something.
So just like an average of 300 DPI.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. So yeah, they're very, very, very high quality. I mean, some stuff is so high quality that you can turn panels into like a mini poster or something like that.
So I always ask for the raw files from people, like the raw PSD file or Illustrator file. Do you not do that, or is there no reason to do that?
You can. There is one reason to do that is if you find somebody, or if you do it yourself, to make a motion comic. The PSD works very well, depending on how the artist did their layers. So yeah, it can help. Don't get me wrong, people can still make motion comics with just the image. It just makes it harder on them. But if you have the PSD, then the person who's making your motion comic will probably charge you less, because it's easier to work with the layers. And honestly, if you do a little research, it's easy to make motion comics by yourself if you have all the layers. Like
And I just feel like a good rule of thumb is to always have the raw file. You never know if you're going to need it in the future for anything. I know it's a huge file, but
yeah,
maybe as a designer in particular.
No, it's true. You can request it. Yeah, honestly, the artist should have no issue with that. They should. It's yours. You're paying for it. But the general is PNG and TIFF, but you can absolutely request the PSD. I know I usually request the PSD on like prints and stuff that I get, because I usually use like art that's on prints, like for social media stuff, right? So like move things around, on the image, like so I'll get the background file, and then like move the character like slightly lower so I could put like some copy or something at the top or whatever, or move the character completely off and use it on a different background, whatever, So yeah, the raw files are 100%. That's askable. have space though. Make sure you got enough cloud space. But yeah, this is the number that you're looking at. Fast food's one way, or various other things that you usually indulge in is a good way to save a few dollars. Yeah. So Kickstarter. Kickstarter is how you are. That's why that 1,100 is the out-of-pocket number is your goal, because what you're doing with the Kickstarter is you're getting. Well, actually, I'll explain that in a minute. First, we're going to talk about building your audience on Kickstarter. First thing you want to do is create an email list. This is your ground zero. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that you need to create an email list. If you do not have an email list, literally right this moment while we're in this conversation, go to MailChimp. It's free. You can start there. Put your email address and accept the confirmation. Create an email list. Absolutely the most imperative thing. If the world burns, okay, I won't say the world, but if social media networks burn, if Facebook and Twitter fall to the ground, you will still have your emails.
And what contacts do you suggest that people use for their email list initially? Because a lot of people are just starting out and all they have are like family, friends, acquaintances, coworkers.
Right. Use who you know first.
Okay.
close family and friends on your list. People will be like, oh, well, I don't want my aunt or my mom or whoever to support me because they're just supporting me because they love me or they like me. And that's who you want, though. That you need people to support you because they love you and like you. Because check this out, people are attracted to things that look like their hype. Like legit, if a dope project is on Kickstarter but it has almost no backers, people will pass the project up quicker than if that project is already close to fully funded, and it's the same exact project. Because it looks like, oh, everybody else is looking at it, it must be something good, you know. So if you get family and friends talking about your thing, then they go, oh man, they're looking at that, it must be good, let me look at it too. You know what I mean? So yeah, your family or friends, let them know what you're doing. I mean, I don't I haven't had like well, my parents dropped a big chunk on the first one, but they didn't drop anything on the second one because they're like, that's all the push you get. But they dropped a nice chunk on the first one. And then I had other family members who dropped a chunk on the first one. It kind of got it rolling. And Kickstarter, especially on the first 2 days, are very heavily on how quickly it rolls. Kickstarter looks at you more heavily. They go, oh wait, this project is serious because you got, you know, out of 5,000 or whatever on your goal, you've got 1,000 already funded within the first couple of hours. You know what I mean? Then Kickstarter is looking at you. Then they start, you know, once they look at you, they make you a project we love. I mean, there's other things involved with that, but you become a project you love, and then now they're promoting your stuff to their platform, you know. But you need to build an audience prior to. Kickstarter is not an audience building. Well, it's not solely. It's not your sole audience building platform. You cannot come out of a shed somewhere in the woods and then throw your project on Kickstarter and expect it to fund. It's not. It's not how that works. You've got to do it prior to. So that means creating email lists, getting family and friends on that list. Let them know what you're doing. Get them to back you. Most of the time they will if you have good family relationships. Sometimes you get surprised. I got surprises. I was like, dang, I didn't know my uncle even cared about me anymore. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, you get those people on your list. They will support you for who you are. Then get on social media, especially Facebook. Look, I know Facebook is the devil, y'all. I know. Get on Facebook. If you are, it is statistically, like, don't get me wrong, Instagram's coming up in the game, which is also owned by Facebook, and Twitter has its perks. But statistically, if you go listen to Gary Vee or most other marketing people, okay, other than the YouTube ones, the YouTube marketers like are staunchly against Facebook, but other than YouTube marketers, most marketers will tell you that statistically Facebook is the best as far as promoting your work, both organically and when you get into the ad process later. But yeah, you want to be on Facebook. Also for comic creation specifically, even if you're not looking at other industries, for comic creation specifically, Facebook is undoubtedly the best way to establish an audience beyond your family and friends. You want to interact with people on social media. You want to interact with like-minded creators and people who are potentially fans of your work. So this is how you use social media. All right. Number one, delete people. Seriously. I'm sure on your Facebook and or Twitter or Instagram, there's people on there who you haven't talked to in like 10 years. Some person that you worked with when you worked at Family Dollar back in 2004, who you never talked to, who you're not really friends with, but they're on your, like, delete them. People you don't know who are on your social media, who offer no value, delete them. When I mean by value, I'm not saying that you don't value people. Let's be clear on that. I'm not saying that these people aren't valuable in their own right and they don't have their own. But if they're not offering, like if you don't know them, if you're not friends with them and they aren't offering anything to you, and you're not really offering anything to them, honestly, if you're not interacting with them or they're not interacting with you, delete them. It just makes the algorithm work harder, even though that your algorithm won't let you see them most of the time anyway. But it gives it more to parse through. Just get rid of that stuff so you can have mostly relevant people on your timeline. Follow and interact with people in your industry. So if you're an indie creator, look for other indie creators, follow them, interact with them, Talk to them about the project they're working on. Be interested in the projects that they're working on. Do not talk about your project, at least not at first. Do not talk about yourself. Talk about them. Talk about other things in your industry that you like. And this is only initially. You will eventually talk about your project, but initially, you don't want to meet somebody and go, "Hey, hi, I have Scorpio. You want to look? You want to check it out?" Like that's not. You're going to turn people off if you just met them. Allow them most of the time to ask about your thing first if you can, before you introduce it to them. Join groups in your industry. This is on Facebook. This is a support aspect of. This is probably one of the most powerful aspects of Facebook. I am in countless comic book nerd groups and indie groups. Honestly, I need to expand to more, but indie comic groups. And like I don't interact with them all the time. Like my social media could use some help. Sometimes I get burnt out. But like if you're doing it in an ideal world, you should be interacting with these groups on a regular basis. Talk about their stuff. Talk about other stuff you've read in indie comics. Talk about comics that you're reading in the industry. If it's Marvel or DC or something hot just popped up. Like if there's a big solicit for a comic that just dropped from Image or DC, spend some time and check it out. I mean, even if you don't care about it that much at first, like at least read the first issue so you have a talking point, some conversation to get involved with these people. Like, oh yeah, I read DC's Future. What's that joint just came out? Future was about to come out. I can't remember, but whatever it's called, the Future, whatever it's called. Yeah, get involved in that. And let people know that shows right there. I need to get involved with it, right? Get involved with that and let people know that you are you have interests like them. Make friends with them. You don't gotta be like best friends like in real life, but you can make like good what's the word, mutuals. Make good mutuals online. Make sure that your posts are relevant. And what I mean by that is you can, I'm not going to say you can't post when you got a caramel macchiato from Starbucks. Okay. I'm not saying you can't post that. But most of your posts need to be related or at least adjacent to your industry. So for example, if you are a comic creator and you like other nerd stuff, it's okay to post that you watched an anime or what you thought about this anime, because it's adjacent, other people may be aware of that anime. You know what I mean? They may be aware of that. I'm not saying you can't post about anything else either. I'm just talking about your regular Facebook page or your regular Twitter page. You can post about an anime you just watched, or a movie or an action movie or something you just watched, or more often than not, a comic that you just read, an indie comic to get more specific that you read, and then something new about your comic that you're working on. So that's what I mean by post relevance. You don't just want to post random stuff like on Twitter, it's a little bit more forgivable because it's Twitter, tweets are more volatile. But like on Facebook, you don't want to post, oh man, just got off work, so tired. It's just, I mean, it's okay. Like, it's not really offering any value. Like, very few people are going to interact with that. I mean, I guess as you get more popular, more people will interact with it, but very few people. But if you post something like, just watched The Old Guard on Netflix. I read that comic a few years ago. It's pretty accurate. I dug it. What do you guys think? That's a good post, because now you're talking about something that you did. You're interacting with people. You're not talking about your thing. You're not forcing it in their face. And then alongside with that, later on, some point in the day, throughout the day, yeah, you can post about your thing. Try to ask questions about it and get people to interact and talk about it. This is a big thing. Create a platform and offer something of value. The biggest thing you do, for example, this workshop is something that hopefully is offering something of value, right? I'm trying to help people out with learning about comic writing and what you need, what that entails, how to get involved with Kickstarter, etc. So hopefully a workshop like this would be helpful. But you want to find your thing, whether it's a blog, whether it's videos on YouTube or podcasts. Note that I do this. I also am a host of the Green Lantern podcast. Not indie comic related at all, but it is comic related. People like comic stuff. They like, some people like Green Lantern. It's comic adjacent. I'm involved in the Green Lantern podcast. I actually was the, I won't say the curator, that's Andy, but Andy came to me to put together the Green Lantern podcast as soon as the show got announced, for the DC TV podcast network. So that's one thing I do. I do a writing podcast that talks about writing, again, adjacent to what we're working on, comic comics involve writing, and I have a podcast about writing. So just do something that creates a platform. And I've done several other things in the past. I didn't do it with the intention of building social media. I was just doing it before. This is before I even started making comics. But I realized that, holy crap, that actually created a platform for me. And it was, my platform actually grew on Twitter. I don't recommend Twitter as the primary. I recommend Facebook, but mine happens to be on Twitter just because that's where a lot of my comic conversation and growth happened. And so I became known as like a big comic head, not about my comic, but just talking about comics in general. And I know a hell of a lot about comics. So when there's conversations about comics, people tag me, hey, what do I need to read to get more information on Monica Rambeau? Or, hey, what comics would you recommend from Image, or like whatever? And because I had that established, when I announced down the line, oh, I'm working on a comic, and people were hyped about it. You know what I mean? So do something that offers value and puts you on some sort of a platform that people can refer to. Okay, and this is how you introduce your thing. So earlier I banged on not talking about your stuff. You don't want to talk about your stuff a whole lot. Grow your social media networks well before you mention any of your own work. Do not mention your work unless somebody asks. If somebody asks if you're a creator, then by all means tell them. Do not mention your stuff. The last thing somebody wants to hear when you first walk into a room is about you. Okay, act like a new person. Be new, because you are new. Be new. Be that person who's, oh, I'm just looking around the group. This looks interesting. What do you guys talk about? What do you guys do here? Kind of a, you want to have that approach to when you enter a new group or you meet new people. Now, as you grow and your project gets out there, people are going to ask you. They're going to ask. That may be the primary question. Wait, what's your thing? When you're starting off, start slow. I started by sharing just the masthead, the Scorpio logo. That was it. That logo, honestly, is probably the most social media interaction that I've gotten since anything else, because it was like the announcement that, oh snap, you're working on a project. You know what I mean? Before any art or anything, I just put the Scorpio logo in coming soon, and it got crazy interaction. But this was because I was already established an audience. It's because I was already interacting with people in different groups. So when I finally, way down the line, and said, oh, here's my logo, I'm working on this, people were excited about it. So you want to kind of start with that. Then you can start to share things like sketches, character studies, of the characters from the book. Yeah, that sort of thing. And then you want to create conversations around your products by, like, hey, like one of the things I did or do for every project is when I have my variant and my regular cover, I say, hey, which one do you guys like more? Or hey, here's a sketch for covers we might use for issue 3 or 4 or whatever. What do you guys think of this? Try to create some conversation. Do not spam groups, especially if you're not interacting with them. Now, I will give a caveat to this. If you're running a Kickstarter, during your Kickstarter, by all means, spam the hell out of them. But regularly, do not spam groups, especially if you're not interacting with the groups in any other way, because you're going to be that person that nobody responds to because they don't know you. And they're just like, oh, this guy just comes in here, or this gal just comes in here to talk about their stuff, and like, what are you even here for other than that? So yeah, don't spam groups when you're introducing your things. So it's all about, this is the hardest part of social media. I'm still learning it. I'm by no means a mastermind at it. Is organic growth. The best ways to do that organic growth is to establish a platform, to make connections, and then really the thing you really wanted to get people to do is to ask about your thing before you tell them about it. That way you can tell them about it naturally. Keep it in your profile, keep your links easily accessible. Make sure that on your page you can talk about your stuff all you want. I mean, you want to talk about other stuff too, but so make sure it's like, that old guard review or whatever is mixed in with stuff about your comic, so your pages doesn't look like just a page full of just your comic stuff, because people will not care about your page if you do that. But by all means, make sure that in the last few posts on your page, you have said something about your comic or something that you're working on that's related to your comic. That's super important. All right, to kickstart, here's the things that you need. Number one, you need a cover. That is not negotiable. Cover, I said 300, you can probably find one for cheaper. This is linked into the $1,100 price. Number 2 is 5 completed pages. So you need a cover, 5 completed pages. You need something to show people. Like these pages right here were completed prior to. This issue was almost done by the time I kickstarted this, but like these pages were done. This is from Scorpio too. So you need some pages to show people so they can see what it looks like, and be interested in it. 3, supporting art. I did not put supporting art into the original price of the Kickstarter or the comic stuff, but you want to get, like, if you can, it is not required. If you can, you want to get some character art, like some like pinups and stuff like that. There's like separate costs for them, from 100 to, well, sometimes less than 100, but from 100 to several hundred. But I mean, there's a wide range of supporting art you can get. You can use these as prints to support your Kickstarter, to offer them something else in addition to the book, that sort of thing. Not required, but recommended. You need an audience. We just talked about the audience. Do not go on Kickstarter with an audience, please. It's not going to fund. You need somebody to know who you are. A Kickstarter video. You need a video, even if it's simple. Now the video is not gonna it's not gonna by itself bring in crazy numbers or anything like that, but it shows that you're more invested and serious about your project to have a Kickstarter video on there. If you look at the percentage of Kickstarters with videos, they are more often funded than those without. So it's not like you won't die if you don't have a video, but it's just a statistical thing to have. Tiers that stack are important. And what I mean by that is, for example, in tier 1, you may offer a digital version of your comic. And in tier 2, you may offer the physical version of your comic, but you also offer the digital in addition to that. Tier 3, you may offer a print, but with the print, you offer the print, the comic, and the digital version. You keep on stacking like that. Again, this is not really a Kickstarter course, so there is literally an entire course that you pay a lot of money for online for teaching you how to do comic Kickstarters. If you look up comics launch, but yeah, it's there's a whole course on that. So I'm not going into all the super specifics of Kickstarter, but I'm just telling you the things you want to think about. You need a pricing model. You need to know basically how much your stuff's going to cost. And how much you need each tier to be to fund like the printing, the shipping, the production costs, etc. So just take note of that. I'm not going to go in detail on pricing model because again, that's a whole course. But yeah, and then you want product mockups. A product mockup is like what this image is right here. It looks like a book. This is a version of an open book. I have several others that have like covers at different, the cover looks like a physical book at different angles. You want that versus just like the picture of the cover. Picture of the cover is just nice, but you want that picture of the cover to be on a mock-up to look like a book. It makes it's a psychological thing. It makes it that much more real in people's heads, and they look good, So yeah, that's really all on Kickstarter. That I'll cover. Any questions for the Kickstarter section? I know we're like over time a little bit probably.
Just one, especially when it comes to posting, especially in the since COVID, let's put it this way, the price of postage has gone up a lot.
Oh yeah.
I was listening to a workshop a couple of weeks ago, and that's one thing that everyone really has to take into consideration. Mm-hmm. That even now, pricing can still go up between the start of a Kickstarter and the time that you're going to ship stuff. So be prepared for that and have a bit of excess. Right,
exactly. Yeah, you should have excess for postage. So for comics, we live and die by media mail. Now you now officially, and I'm like in a war with USPS with this. Officially, USPS says, actually no, officially they don't say that comics aren't media mail. But if you speak to certain individuals at USPS, you will get pushback and say, oh, well, comics are not media mail because they're not a book, which is asinine in my opinion. Honestly, that's a shot at comics. I don't even want to get into how offended I am by the fact that they say comics aren't books. It's literally called a comic book. But I've had conversations with USPS about that. I will say 99 point. I've had one thing. I have like literally out of 1,000+ orders sent out, individual packages sent out. I have one that was the USPS I had opened up and said, oh, this is a comic, it's not media mail. So I'm good with that rate. And since then, I've still sent out a bunch of stuff in media mail. Media mail is right now it's $2.80. It's $3.33 if you go above a pound, I believe. I think it goes up a little higher per pound. If you're sending prints and stuff, try to send them smaller than the size of your comic book for Kickstarters. That way you're not you're not having to get packaging that's bigger than your comic, and your price will go up with that. But yeah, media mail is the way to go. Even if USPS says, oh, comics aren't media mail, I've had conversations with my local people here that say they are. So just send it media mail until an official statement comes out and says absolutely you can't send it through media mail. Send it through media mail. Anything above that is just ridiculous as far as the pricing of sending some of that stuff out. So
I had a question about one of the last lines on the Kickstarter thing was about the mock-up.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Where would you get something for a mock-up?
Yeah.
But like the actual thing to put the art on.
So if you Google PSD mockups, there's a site called PSD mockups, I believe. That's a good one. If you Google PSD mockups, you'll get several sites. And if you look up PSD comic mockups or PSD magazine mockups, you'll get several sites. I mean, mockups are honestly like they work for far more than comics. You get mockups of mugs, mockups of t-shirts. You can get moving mockups of t-shirts. It's crazy. Like like a video, and put your t-shirt on a model that's in a video with your shirt on it. So they've gotten pretty dynamic with the mockups. But yeah, for comics, just look up comic mockup in Google. You'll find a lot of stuff. Some of them are free. I did pay for PSD mockups, which is like $3 or something like that, a month or something like that. I usually pay for it when I need it and cancel when I don't. But they're not super expensive. Let's see. Any other questions on any of this Kickstarter stuff?
I believe I have another question that's not really on the Kickstarter, but I noticed the next page has final recommendations. I think you're about close to wrapping up.
Yeah. What's the question?
So it might seem kind of like a backwards question. I'm less of a writer and more of a plotter. Question is actually, how much do writers cost?
Oh, how much do writers cost? Yeah. So that varies. Writers cost about, I would say, expect a minimum of 25 per page for a comic writing. I don't want to give a max because it can vary a lot, but I would say look at 25 to 50 bucks. Expect 25 to 50 bucks per page for writing.
Yeah. Like I've got a lot of plot, and I have a pretty like plotted all the way out, but
right.
I'm an okay writer. I'm an okay artist. So I need some
No, I got you. Yeah. Writer costs about 25 to 50. I mean, some will go higher for sure. You may find some that are less, but that's about how much they'll cost for comics.
Actually, I guess an important question along with the last question I have.
Yeah.
I know where to find artists. What place to find writers?
Facebook's okay. So writers are a little bit hard because here's the thing. Writers are harder because it's more you can look at art and you can tell whether or not you like it, right?
Exactly.
Writing, you either have to have read usually more than one of their works to know if you like it, or to go off of their either track or their history, their track record of having written for other things, or their word. Honestly, writing is more subjective as whether or not it's good. It's a little bit harder. Now they're everywhere. I'll tell you right now, if you post that you're looking for a writer on any group on Facebook, you will get overwhelmed with posts. But the amount of people who are actually good and then parsing out who's good, that's difficult. So I recommend seeking out people whose work you already, before you go out and do it. Like for artists, it's easier to do a post like on Facebook, or in a group or something like that. And you can very quickly look at their art, see if you dig it. For writers, you kind of want to look for people whose writing you already like, Now, I mean, I wouldn't recommend like going to NK Jemisin and being like, hey, because that's probably not going to happen. But like if you go into other indie writers who you see in the indie sphere, and you keep any of you friended on Facebook or something like that, or your mutuals with, then yeah, talk to them and see what their rates are, and see, let them know your idea and see if they're a good fit, and then be upfront about the pricing. As a writer, the biggest it's annoying, and I'm sure other writers who are in here who've probably gotten the same thing at different times. As soon as people realized that I was writing and serious about writing, what I mean serious is they saw that okay, they read a short story, somebody read a fan fiction that I wrote, it was just for fun, and they're like, oh man, this is good. I got this idea for a novel. And then it got way more heavy when I first dropped Scorpio, and then when I dropped other short stories that I've written, it got way more heavy. Like, oh, you're serious about writing? All right, well, I got this project, and you will get 90% of these people are the ones who are not willing. They're not trying to pay you. To say, well, oh yeah, write the story, you'll get the payment on the back end. Blah, they're not serious. Just make sure that you're upfront with the fact that you're serious about paying them, because writers get that all the time, and they will not take you serious unless you're serious about payment upfront. Yeah, I mean, artists are the same way, of course. Artists will turn, but yeah, right. Like I'm telling you that if I could just show you the number of emails and messages that I mean, honestly, it was almost, I felt bad, but then I started feeling insulted, because I was like, wow, you just think like this takes a long time to do this. You know what I mean? To write your story that you're asking about, that's work. And to say that, oh no, I'm just going to shoot you the idea, that I'll give you a percentage on the back end. Like, nah, that's not how that works, man. So yeah, just take note of that. Yeah, any other questions on any of the other stuff just discussed prior to?
Hey, John. So where does copywriting and trademarks come into play here?
Oh yeah. As soon as your product is, well, probably beforehand, get a trademark on your. I may be mixing it too up. You want a copyright and a trademark before your thing releases, or if you don't have it by then, at least very quickly after. That way somebody can't like take the name, like, Scorpio or something, and say, oh, this is my project named Scorpio and my concept that they can't try to claim your thing. The copyright, dang, which one? I'm sorry. One of them protects one of the other things. I can't remember which protects which. But yeah, both of them you do need to protect your work. So if you don't have it like before the product is done, then have it very quickly after. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. So even on like the artwork, like the pencils, does that be fully like colored or?
No. You have it on the final product. Get your
final. Okay.
Yeah. You don't have to have it like on the individual page. Like once it's on the product, that like if you have an issue like or a series like Scorpio, once you trademark that series, or copyright that series, then it's like everything under it is
Gotcha.
Yeah, you don't have to do it like individually.
Awesome, thanks.
Yep. Any other questions?
Just one, yeah. How do you keep track of all the tax, etc.? That, because obviously you're paying people to work for you, then they have to pay tax on what they earn. Obviously, maybe there's I don't know, some kind of like, I don't know. We in the UK we have VAT. Over in Germany here we have Mehrwertsteuer. So like all of that comes into play, and the more people you got to pay, the more things you've got to consider. So how do you work that over in the States?
Yeah, you get familiar with the 1099. I believe it was a 1099E. I might be getting the number wrong. I believe it's a 1099E. Yeah, I think that's the form. But you have to get familiar with how to fill that stuff. Now the artists and stuff, they gotta do their stuff on their end for the payments that you pay them. But like for the revenue that you make off of your stuff, you have to get used to the 1099E for. Now initially, there's a certain amount initially where it's not a big deal. I think it's like it's low. It's
It's $500, I believe.
right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So it's less than 500 words. Like nobody's gonna ding you, and IRS won't like come at you with pitchforks. But yeah, above that amount, then yeah, they can possibly say, okay, well, where's your company name? Where's your forms? I see that you have this excess of money. Where you getting it from? And they're gonna ask you to produce documentation and proof or whatever. So yeah, I think it's 1099. I'm not the super tax expert, but I know that that's the form that you need to do the research on to parse your stuff out.
Would you advise getting a lawyer before you actually put a book out?
A lawyer, maybe a consultant or somebody that understands it. You know what I mean? I have people that help consult with a lawyer is more like if you hit a legal, I think if you, well, in my opinion, if you hit a legal roadblock, you know what I mean? But a consultant will help you figure that stuff out hopefully before you hit a legal roadblock. So somebody that understands, even a tax preparer, someone who understands your how you do your taxes and stuff like that, or what you've got going on with your business. Yeah, I would do that before a lawyer. Now, if somebody tries to come after you, IRS or otherwise, or I don't know, then yeah, a lawyer, you wanna get. I mean, I'm not sure how much a lawyer can do against IRS, but I mean, they're like the monster. But yeah, definitely, I would say tax or business consultant. Any others? All right. Start wrapping it up with these final recommendations. So number one, some training you could do as far as the creative process. You can reverse engineer. This is taking a comic book page. You could use any comic for this, and you can write the panel page and panel descriptions and the dialogue as if you had written the script for that comic. So, for example, on panel one here, you could say page one, panel one, location shot. I think they're at a Sentinel facility. So you could say, or is it Shield? Yeah. You could say internal or external Shield facilities, location shot. Maybe give some description about the trees in the middle of a forest or whatever the case. And then you do the dialogue to get used to it. Narration in parentheses or time, which is now. That's one good delineation for time narration. And then page two, panel two, storm attack. Whatever. Describe what's going on in the scene to the best of your ability in the dialogue, to get used to the process of writing a comic book prior to writing any or in between. It's good practice even if you've written stuff already. Writing comic, it just gets you familiar and comfortable with writing descriptions. Another thing you do is for practicing dialogue is you can find some unlettered pages. Just literally Google unlettered pages on DeviantArt or Google. You can find a bunch of unlettered pages. You can write in the dialogue based on the storytelling. Most of these pages are good because it helps the usually the artist has conveyed through storytelling what's going on pretty well, and you can figure out what requires dialogue, what doesn't require dialogue, what kind of conversation is going on here. You've got these guys have kind of a shocked look on their face. You've got another guy punching the wall. You've got this guy still kind of shocked. So you can kind of parse together a story and what's going on based on just the panels without the dialogue. And it's good practice for knowing how much or how little dialogue to add to a page. For books that I highly recommend for learning the comic process, number one, I literally ask every artist, every writer that I work with, every editor, have you read Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud? This is ground zero. This is it. If you don't ever pick up another comic writing book in your life, please pick up Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. It's like your Bible to creating comics. It goes into the most detail that I've ever seen any other book go into about the process. It explains comics from a conceptual point of view all the way down to the technical side. I mean, it really breaks it down in great. It goes to the history of comics, back to, I'm talking about like hieroglyphs, up to, to now. So that it's probably the best book for or on understanding comics and the writing process. It's good for artists too. Like, artists should also read this book. Second most informative book, in my opinion, is Words for Pictures by Brian Michael Bendis. Now, he breaks down stuff. This is how I learned what the pitch looks like. This is how I learned what the Marvel style script and the full scripts looks like. And then the big thing he does here is he talks to industry artists. He, of course, is one of the most popular writers in the comic book industry. He talks to other industry professionals about what comic writing looks like. Artists specifically. So what do artists like that writers do? What don't they like? That sort of a thing. So he really breaks that down in great detail. So yeah, Brian Michael Bendis' Words for Pictures, highly recommend. Some tools that you should look into for comic creation. These are just examples. Evernote for taking notes, creating a story Bible. Trello for keeping track of different process or different progress or different stages of progress in your book. Trello was a list taking app. So you can literally like a board of lists. And then inside of those lists, you can make checklists. So it's the best list tool. It's better than even like, I think Wunderlist I used to use, but it's better than that in my opinion. Pinterest is this is how you beat writer's block. If you're stuck on character design, you're stuck on story, you're stuck on setting, whatever the case, go to Pinterest, Google the thing that's on your mind, and then just go for it. Like, just click through, save stuff to a board, you call it inspiration, whatever. Pinterest is a good place to do that. Also, Pinterest is one of the best places for references. If you have a reference that you find somewhere, you pin it to Pinterest, you make your artist a collaborator on your Pinterest board, and then you link them the images from Pinterest for your references for fight poses or expressions or what have you. Google Drive, Dropbox for saving things. I use these for just storing files. Luckily, I have an extended Google Drive right now because my wife, she thought that she needed space for videos, but she barely uses any of it. So I set us up on a family plan, and I'm using the space. So for Google Drive, that's a good spot. Dropbox is excellent for sharing like PDFs with customers. That's probably the best way to do it. You do it through Google Drive too, but I think Dropbox is a better way of sharing PDFs. Like if somebody buys a comic or whatever, or you do a Kickstarter, you can send everybody the link to the Dropbox, and they can download the comic and stuff. Doku Wiki, I use this for story Bibling. I did not talk about Story Bible in this. That's a whole other writing conversation. However, I do talk about Story Bible on my podcast. So if you look up Fourth Wall, IVWAL.net, that podcast is on hiatus right now, but that episode, like those episodes are still available. Yeah, I use that for story Bibling it's basically a wiki, like Wikipedia. It helps organize things for yourself and artists. I did not use it for Scorpio, and I probably won't because it's too much to port over. But when I started working on some more recent projects, I created a wiki, and it's excellent as far as it takes some time to do, but I'm big on organization. So
how open is that to the public? I mean, can you just create private pages for you and your artist?
Yep. If you were to go right now to a project that I announced that's out in the wild, still early progress, is The Last of the Four. I'm working on with artist Michael Watson. So The Last of the Four, if you go to fourthwall.net/The Last of the Four, you can't get into it, but like literally it's just sitting there on my host. It's just it's a Doku wiki. You've got to have a login. The only people who have a login are myself and the artists working on the project. But yeah, I don't usually tell people where it's at, but I'm telling y'all because it doesn't really matter. But yeah, you just need a place to host it at, and you upload like a file on your hosting, and slash whatever the folder's called, and there you go. So you do need hosting space for it, but that's about it. And if you want, if it's just for yourself and not an artist, you can make a local host. Just host it on like a WAMP or a XAMPP server on your computer, and you can do it that way, and then port it over to online later if you want. There's a little bit of slight learning curve as far as the hosting and website stuff, but it's not too difficult. Slack and Discord, communication. That's pretty much as like it is what it is. Communication. There's not really much else to say there. PayPal, good way to work and pay artists and to get paid for things yourself. I say PayPal because when artists try to ghost you, PayPal will pay you back. Most of the time, they will pay you back, depending on the way you pay. Do not pay families and friends if you don't trust the artist, or if it's you don't beforehand, because PayPal will not pay you back for that. But if you do it like do a business payment to somebody, like goods and services, then PayPal, if you dispute it and you provide enough evidence that hey, this person ghosted you or whatever, PayPal they'll get your back. Square for receiving payments, I recommend. Gumroad, I may take off here. Gumroad, you can receive payments there. I'm annoyed with them because their shipping method is garbage. I had to redo my store recently and like do a basically from scratch store through WooCommerce on my site because I could not get Gumroad to accommodate the shipping. But like if you have one thing for right now and you just need to throw up a store really quick, Gumroad's a good way to go. Square is a good way to receive payment. Like if for conventions you get a little swipe device, you can take payments. PayPal has one too, but I like Square for that. And then Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I mentioned social media earlier. Won't go into detail about that again, but you need to be, I would say be on all of them. Heavily, you only need to be on one of them, which if you choose one, I would recommend Facebook. If you're already heavy on Twitter or Instagram, then by all means, continue to build your audience there. But yeah, you want to be on social media. And that's pretty much it. So we went quite a bit over time there. I mean, I told the show before we started this, it is a long presentation. I know I can condense it down, but I know if people have questions, I want to make sure I'm able to answer any questions that folks have. If you have any questions now, but about anything that we discussed, feel free to ask me. Yeah, I'm open for any questions.
Are you open to like booking one-on-one coaching sessions with people who want to put out comics? Paid, of course. I know you're not doing just out here doing one-on-ones for free, but I wondered if that's something you do or would consider doing.
Yeah. So I had briefly when I had a Patreon, I was offering that. My Patreon model is that is a difficult model to get used to. It's a thing and a half. But on Kickstarter, that was actually one of the things I offered in one of my tiers, and I think I had one on the first Kickstarter, and so I worked with her on consulting for her story and stuff like that. I've got to figure out an hourly. I have kind of an idea in my head. But I gotta like sharpen it. But yeah. I can absolutely talk to people about the comic process. The Kickstarter process, I can. It'll be lesser because there are people who know a whole lot more than Kickstarter. They charge a whole lot more too, though. Who know a whole lot more Kickstarter and have the formula down like a freaking just like genius, And I learned a lot of stuff from them, so they'd be able to best help with that stuff. But I can do the Kickstarter or the whole all the way from creating the comic process to the Kickstarter process. I'll probably wrap that all up together versus doing like a Kickstarter thing just by itself. Or if I did a Kickstarter thing by itself, it would charge like way lower, just because I know that my we'll say effectiveness, because I know how to run a Kickstarter, but I just know that there's a lot of parties out there that are available for the Kickstarter process. So yeah, but I'd be open to that.
So if anybody wanted to set up a session with you or discuss it with you, is there an email that they could find you at?
Yes, it is. not listed here because I'm silly. It is contact@fourthwall.net. Yeah, if you email me there, I'll get it. I'll respond immediately.
And I'll put all of this in the email with the recording too. I just wanted to make sure.
Roger that. Yeah, contact@fourthwall.net. Also, if you see me on Facebook, like, you guys can feel free to you can friend me on Twitter or follow me on Twitter. You can message me if you DM. I'm open to DMs. Like, they're open. It's not like I will respond to DMs. Message on my website, message on Facebook. You can friend me on Facebook too. So my personal Facebook I didn't write here, but if you just look up John Scooter Robinson, my nickname is Scooter. So if you look up John Scooter Robinson, you can find me on there as well. And then the comic, of course, if you want to look up Scorpio itself, it's on scorpiocomic.com.
I have a question because I saw one of the books that you recommended include a graphic novel in the title. When do you decide that you're writing a graphic novel instead of a comic book, or vice versa?
So if you're starting off, you want to write a comic. highly recommend. There's several reasons for that. I'll go through them really quickly. The first reason is you want to be able to produce something first. Some people even recommend writing a short comic, like an anthology. Actually, that was the first thing I wrote. I wrote an anthology project. It was 9 pages, got published in Corpus Anthology, and that's how I started. Prior to that, there was another short comic that I wrote that was like 5 pages that was related to a novel that has not been released yet. But yeah, so there's that. So it helps you build as far as experience with writing comics. If there's the shorter stuff you write, and getting comfortable with writing comics. And then on the other side of it, the business side of it, it helps you to build audience. Because when you release a single, say you have like a trade paperback or something, and it's going to be, the first arc is going to be like 106 pages or something like that, right? But in a graphic novel or in comic form, that's like 4 or 5 issues or something, right? On Kickstarter, and every time you launch a project on Kickstarter, like if you launch per issue, you're building your audience per issue. Every time you get somebody hype, they're getting hype over the next issue of that thing, and it builds exponentially. You will almost always have more backers and more, I won't say necessarily more money, but you will almost always have more backers, which usually translates to more money per Kickstarter that you do. Because now you have more people that, given that you do the other parts of Kickstarter, right? And it'll just continue to grow your audience as you go. Versus if you do a graphic novel, it takes longer to get out. You're paying more upfront to get it out. You're not as comfortable with the process of making completed projects yet. And then you get that one push on audience building before your next graphic novel comes out. Versus if you release individual issues. So I highly recommend, if you're starting out, individual issues. No, once you have an audience, graphic novels, go for it. Yeah.
I didn't realize it's a Kickstarter per comic book. And
doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. You can. Some people would do like for the first issue, and then the other ones they just release regularly. Like sometimes they get picked up by a company. Sometimes they just generated enough funds to just continue to produce them regularly, or sometimes they just continue to do it out of pocket. But sometimes even when a company picks you up, like I'll use Scout Comics, for example. Scout Comics picked up White Ash, great indie comic, by the way. But they still go back to Kickstarter. I don't think they go back for every issue, but they go back to Kickstarter every once in a while. And they help to fund those books to help the company and the creator out. So yeah, and don't feel bad. That's one thing you'll learn if you go to some of the Kickstarter courses like Comics Launch. Do not feel bad for launching per issue. People want to support, especially if you're an indie creator. People want to support. Now, if you're Keanu Reeves, I love Keanu Reeves, but I'm gonna use him as a target for a second. If you're Keanu Reeves and you launch a Kickstarter project, people are gonna side eye you because you're Keanu Reeves. You know what I mean? Keanu Reeves can throw $5,000 at a project like it's nothing. So the fact that he launched a Kickstarter project last month, a lot of people were up for it. Now, was I really bad about it? Not really, because it was helping the company out. I kind of get it. having Keanu Reeves' name attached to it it's going to make it blow up. But at the same time, it's like, come on, man, it's Keanu. He does not need Kickstarter to fund a book. But as an indie creator, no, people are 100% willing. It's 100% a myth that people will not back your stuff because you're doing your 6th Kickstarter. That's a myth.
Amazing. This is super helpful, by the way. Thank you so much. Really, thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Do we have one more time? A little more time for one more question?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. Okay, so I put out my first comic this year, written, drawn, lettered, everything. And I did it via KDP, Kindle. Kindle
Yeah.
and blurb. So there's no great outlay there. I didn't have to pay. All I had to pay for was my own time. Yeah. Would you recommend for someone like myself also to go to do a Kickstarter? I mean, the thing is, what I can see, I can't really think of anything that I really need to collect a whole shipload of money for,
Right, absolutely. I mean, you got to pay yourself. Yeah. I mean, even when you're producing your own thing, I mean, you could pay for your own time, and then on top of that, money, like say you're like, okay, I don't care about money for myself. You can still do a Kickstarter because you can get people to do other parts of the project for you that you may not have the time or you may need time more for in the future. Like, for example, say your next project, you're like, man, I really don't want to letter this whole thing. Well, you did a Kickstarter, now you have budget for a letterer, or like, man, the inking process last time, I need somebody, I just want to do the sketches. Let me have somebody come back and ink this, and then I'll do the colors after. You know what I mean? You can fund the project for your own stuff. Then printing, I don't know, do you have a printed version of it?
Yeah. It's all printed over Amazon Kindle. It's Kindle, but for example, so far I haven't even done the digital version. I've only done the printed version. It's just concerns with instant piracy, etc.
Oh no. Oh yeah. Okay, so piracy, do not have. Okay, if somebody is pirating your book in the indie world, that is a good thing. No, I'm serious. It sounds wild, but that is a good thing, because that means that your book is so big and so popular that people are going to pirate. First of all, a pirate took the time to put it up on some site because they think it's good enough. And then secondly, your thing is so widely spread and well known that people are looking to pirate it. And then still, it's kind of like it hurts more if you are a part of a company, like say you're working for like Boom Studio or something like that, and then someone's pirating your stuff. It hurts a little bit more because you need the sales to continue with the company needs to know that you're producing the sales. And if people are pirating your book, then it's like, are my sales going down because people are pirating it? So that hurts a little bit more. But if it's just you and somebody's pirating your book, that is good because it's exposure. And comic fans more so than movie and TV, because I mean, movie and TV, they get pirated like it's nothing, and music used to before Spotify and stuff. But they don't care. But when it comes, like, comic fans are really big on their, even if they pirate a book and they like it, they're like, oh man, I'm gonna go buy this thing. You know what I mean? And if they buy your thing based on something that they pirated, and they like your book, they become a customer. They're gonna now continue to buy your book in the future, even if they pirate the second issue in the future. You know what I mean? If they like it, they're going to eventually want to get the physical thing, and they're going to want to support the creator. I didn't really talk about it a whole lot because it's not really a marketing workshop fully, but there is a relationship between customer and creator when it comes to specifically the indie world. People like the idea that creator created a thing and that you can talk to them. Oh man, I could just hit you up. Like back in the day, I was unheard of. Like you have to send in letters to Marvel to talk to Stan Lee or John Byrne or whoever back, but now it's like the fact that, oh man, I'm on your email list. I can just respond to this email and get a response back, or I can just hit you on Facebook, or like, that's cool. You know what I mean? So people like that idea, and that one-to-one relationship makes them more likely to want to support you versus if you're like, it's a random like Flash book. It's a Flash, I see you on the screen, but like a Flash book from DC, it's easier to download Flash because it's like Flash. I don't know that writer. I'm not going to get in contact with them. It's just, Let me just download this flash so I can read it real quick, you know. But
Yeah.
even in Marvel and DC, if somebody read a Marvel and DC book, under comic fans, it's more likely that if they really like the book, that they're probably going to end up buying like the trade paperback or something of that. You know, not always, but it's more likely than like in the movie industry.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for the great workshop.
Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah. Any other questions or comments or anything?
Who prints comic books, or like, do you just go to Kinko's?
Oh no, don't go to Kinko's. Oh, they will. I don't even know what those prices look like. Oh my gosh. There's a few sites online. Comic Impressions is one of the best ones. There's also Kraken used to be a thing, but I think Kraken went out of business. Kraken Print. There is on Facebook. There's Page by Page Publishing. A great small company, great prices. Their prices may go up as they get bigger though, because they're getting bigger. There's another one that is escaping me that is one of the bigger ones. There's Ninja Print. That's another one. Ninja Print is a good one. And there is, why can't I think of this? Oh, Kablam. There we go. Kablam is a pretty. Now I think they're a little expensive, but it's quality. I mean, they definitely give you quality stuff. But so far, my favorite right now is Page by Page. He's on Facebook, Page by Page Copies and Printing or something like that. And Comic Impressions so the guy's name is actually Richard Boyer, but he goes by Rich Boy. Yeah, if you look up Rich Boy or Richard Boyer on Facebook, or if you look up Comic Impressions on like Google or something like that, you'll find his page. I would recommend messaging him if you find him on Facebook, because he will give you a better price if you talk to him than if you go to the website.
Amazing, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other cues?
Yeah, maybe it's one of the most basic questions of all. How do you know when your story is good?
Editor. Your editor will tell you. Get an honest editor. I have editors who are they're honest. I mean, like, oh my goodness, Andrea on let me tell you what Andrea said when she got issue 3. Her first comment when she comes back after, she goes, so is this like a first draft or and I was like, ouch. Yeah. But no, we went through it and we ironed out some. It wasn't a whole lot wrong with it. There's like little kinks and stuff here and there, like some questions like the whys, but no, your editor, that's your if you get a good editor, that's your North Star as far as knowing, like, hey, am I doing this right? You know what I mean? And then again, comfort with writing in general. Write. Like even if it's just like short stories. I used to be staunchly against fanfic, but even if you're writing fanfic, like I was highly surprised by when I read a fanfic on, that people started like paying attention to the fact that I was serious about writing. It was like something dealing with Thanos and Gamora. That's what it was, like a father-daughter story. And people were like, oh snap, like this should be like a comic or a whatever, you know. So like that's practice though. Like I don't know where I got the idea from. I saw it somewhere. And I was just like, oh, this will be fun. Why not? Like it took me like a night to do the first draft. And I went back over it and like went through it the next day. It's like a little 5,000 word short story fanfic. And yeah, it was just fun. Obviously no payment or anything out of it. It's just something to practice with. But just doing stuff like that to practice is an important part of knowing whether the thing you have is good, because you get more comfortable with your own writing, you know.
And where did you print the fanfic? Was it on a blog, or is there like I don't know, like I've never done fanfic before, so I have no idea where I would post such a thing.
It's on Wattpad and what's the Archive of Our Own, I think is what it's called. I'm not like the biggest fanfic head. I only write it every once in a while, so like I'm not the best reference for fanfic, but it's called like ao3.org, I think. Or if you Google AO3, you'll find it. It says it's like Archive of Our Own, I think is the name of the site. But yeah, I posted there and I posted on Wattpad. And then I just like, you know, I tweeted out or something like that. Hey, look, I wrote this random Marvel thing for fun. I wrote a couple of Star Wars ones, and a couple of Marvel ones. I'm a big Star Wars and comic head, so one of the Star Wars ones I wrote was well, it's still in progress because I take forever to do that stuff. But it's like, what if Finn was like the guy who get the no, what if he was awakened at the beginning of 7 instead of Rey? And a lot of people responded well to that because they're like, oh yes, like that's who we thought it was going to be to begin with because of the trailers. So yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Can you spell Wattpad?
WATTPAD. Whiskey Alpha Tango Tango Papa Alpha Delta.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. I think that wraps us up. Not sure if Rochelle has anything to go out on.
No, just again, thank everybody for coming, and all of the information that we've discussed, even some of the information that weren't on the slides, I'm going to make sure it's all in the email that you guys will get with the newsletter, with the recording. And also 3 of you are going to be receiving John's comic. So you have to open the email to see which one of you will get it. So
Nice.
be prepared for that. That's it.
All right. Awesome.
Production.
Yeah. Thanks for coming through. I definitely I love talking about this stuff. Obviously, I mean, comic creation is a it's I guess a passion, I guess. But yeah, feel free to hit me up on social media. I'll respond. Let me know if you have any other questions and stuff like that through there.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Peace out.